Hello and good afternoon. Welcome to Right Side Broadcasting Network on this gloomy Friday, November 21st in the Federal City. It's a bit overcast here in the loveliest village on the plains, as well as we look towards the latest news from the Trump White House, where the commie Mamdani is meeting with President Donald Trump, and that will be roughly 1 hour from now. That event still closed press. If that does open up, we will be very interested to take you there, as I think many people around the country wanting to be a fly on the wall for a situation like this with the self-described socialist, but the Democrat Socialist of America really seem like they have not necessarily wind at their back, but definitely emboldened by this election of the mayor-elect, Mr. Mamdani, in New York City. In fact, a resolution in the House passing to get rid of the socialist mantra or decry it as not good for America. 98 Democrats voting nay on that resolution. So it seems to be a party in divide right now as we watch closely everything happening inside and outside of the Beltway leading up to the 2026 midterms. Now, he's at it once again. Al Green of Texas, the congressman, and you might remember him from that joint session of Congress back on March 5th, the same one where the Democrats did not stand for DJ Daniel, yes, the young man who's been sworn into the Houston PD and honorably sworn into the United States Secret Service by Director Sean Curran himself, right in the rafters there. This young man who all he wants to do is serve his country and suffering from brain tumors and having to go in and out of the hospital, but being that voice of hope for countless millions of Americans. Yes, the Democrat Party could not stand for DJ Daniel. It's really an amazing thing. Instead, the man who wields the cane on the House floor was able to stand and out of turn, out of line, out of Robert's Rules of Order, scream at the President of the United States during that speech where President Trump reminded us it was simply not necessarily legislation, but a change in the White House that would lead to secure borders and a safe America. But Mr. Green, with cut number 12, showcasing his idiocracy and very far left views on the steps of the House.
I'm here today because this is my watch. This is my watch. But it's also the watch of all of the people who are here with me. So in truth, this is our watch. Yes. This is our watch. Yes. And on our watch, we refuse to allow the demise of democracy. Yes. Not on our watch. On our watch, we refuse to allow liberty and justice for all to become a thing of the past. Not on our watch. Not on our watch. On our watch, we refuse to allow one person to dominate the House, the Senate, and the presidency in the United States of America. Not on our watch. This is our watch. Dr. King reminds us that the truest measure of the person is not where the person stands in times of comfort and convenience, when there are no issues related to democracy and the republic. He reminds us that the truest measure of the person is where do you stand in times of challenge and controversy. In these times of challenge and controversy, we stand for the remedy that can make the difference and maintain the democracy, and that remedy is impeachment. Impeachment. But that's not enough. That's not enough. Impeachment we must do. Impeachment is the indictment. So he must be indicted. Impeachment. But then there's a Senate. And the Senate has the opportunity to try the case. It is in the Senate that you get what? Conviction. Conviction. And when the Senate convicts, then the Senate has the opportunity to do what? Remove. impeach, convict, and remove.
So whether it's Governor Gavin Newsom in California or Representative Al Green in Texas, that is the clear mission: to impeach Trump, to get Trump, quote unquote, as they have been trying to do for nearly a decade. Fake impeachments to assassination attempts. And we know the Russia, Ukraine, and now even with the Epstein files and a 43-day government shutdown, the list goes on and on and on. The Democrats keep trying to throw spaghetti at the wall to see what sticks, and nothing does other than showing their true hand, playing their cards. They need to learn how to play some Texas Hold'em because they really do not know just what the hell they are doing. But we are fortunate enough to have a vice president who does, with Breitbart just yesterday, describing what is crucial for the 2026 elections, especially in regards to healthcare, especially in regards to the economy, with cut number 13, Mr. Producer.
They said, we really want to address the healthcare problem confronting the American people. The president said, well, absolutely. We agree. We want to address the healthcare problem confronting the American people. In fact, you people screwed it up with Obamacare, the Unaffordable Care Act. And now you're coming to us saying, let's fix it. Great. Let's fix it. And then they said, I think they were kind of caught off guard, and they're like, well, but we want the fix before we're willing to open up the government. And the president was like, that's like 3 days from now. You want us to fix American health care in the next 3 days, and unless you do it, you're going to shut down the government? How about we open up the government and then work together to fix American health care? And of course, we know the history. They rejected it. They shut down the government. But I don't want to get ahead of the president, Matt, because we had a very, very good meeting in the Oval Office yesterday. I think that we have a great health care plan coming together. I think that it's going to get Republican and Democrat support. And I think the president, look, right now, the American people get crap health care, and they pay way too much for it. You have people who are paying thousands of dollars a month in premiums for a family of 4, a family of 5, and the access to health care is really low. This system is broken. The Democrats broke it, but who cares? We're going to work together if they're willing to fix it. And the interesting thing, Matt, is, people say, and this is one of the things I love about the president, people come to the president and say, no, don't talk about health care. That's a graveyard for Republicans. Republicans always lose on health care. And the president's like, I don't care about the politics of it. This system is screwed up for the American people. We need to fix it. So let's go and do it. Politics be damned. I love that. That's leadership. And that's exactly what we should want coming from the White House.
And just as it was over that fireside chat with our friends over at Breitbart, the vice president describing affordability and the economy being crucial to 2026, just as it was in 1992, just as it was in countless elections over the course of the last several cycles. Now, you have a situation as well where Secretary Bessent specifying that Q1 and Q2 of next year, you will see some of the greatest relief, and the vice president diving into that issue with cut number 14.
My message to the American people who are still feeling like things are unaffordable, who are still feeling like things are rough out there is look, we get it, and we hear you, and we know that there's a lot of work to do. There's a lot of wood to chop because the Biden administration put us in such a very, very tough spot. And the way that I think about this is it's always helpful to take this from the abstractions to the actual real things that people are worried about. So take, for example, a dozen eggs. I'll never forget this. It was one of the very first, maybe the single first press conference that the president had done since he had started his second term. And some reporter, probably from ABC, yells at him and says, what have you done about the price of eggs? The price of eggs are up 300% over the past 3 years. And it's like, it was January the 23rd. It's like, what do you mean, what have we done in 2 days? It's going to take a little bit of time to fix that problem. And so if you're an American who's just struggling to get by, you work hard, you pay your taxes, you want your kids to have good opportunities, and the price of eggs goes from $2 a dozen to $8 a dozen, under the Biden administration. And then under the Trump administration, it goes from $8 a dozen to maybe $6.50 a dozen. Well, to you, that is still a major problem. And even though we've made incredible progress, we understand that there's a lot more work to do. And the thing that I'd ask for the American people is a little bit of patience. This economy was not harmed in 10 months. It took a deliberate 4-year administration that was making life harder for everyday Americans, that was importing foreign workers instead of giving jobs to American workers, that was over-regulating, overtaxing, overspending. They were doing everything wrong. And as much progress as we've made, it's going to take a little bit of time for every American to feel that economic boom, which we really do believe is coming. We believe that we're on the front end of it, but we also recognize that we've got a lot of work to do to undo the damage that Joe Biden did to the American economy. And the last one I'll say, Matt, is let's be honest, it's not just Joe Biden. As much as I think Joe Biden was one of the most disastrous presidents of American history, we had a policy in this country for 40 years of shipping American jobs overseas and hiring foreign workers instead of American workers. That has caused the economic stagnation of the American middle class. There was one bright spot in 40 years, and that was the first Trump administration. And there is going to be a massive exception to that 40-year trajectory of American decline, and that's the second Trump administration. We just got to keep it going.
It's that time of year, holiday season, and next week, Thanksgiving. Can you believe it? With Hanukkah and Christmas right around the corner. You don't want to get sick as you travel and you have the togetherness with family and friends, lots of shaking hands and sharing meals, and sometimes people can get sick. So don't let that ruin the holiday season for you. With allfamilypharmacy.com/RSBN, they are the leading online pharmacy to make sure you have access to 300 plus medications that are life-saving, life-giving, and quite frankly, not available anywhere else, from generics that actually are affordable and can help you with countless sicknesses, including ivermectin, dihydrochloroquine, methylene blue, NAD+, and much, much more. Antibiotics, antivirals, Tamiflu, emergency medical kits that you could take on the road with you, and at the very least, have your medicine cabinet stocked up and ready to go. Because this time of year as well, the urgent care line, I saw one right by my place the other day, just through the door with sickness happening. So scan that QR code right now. Don't have those long lines and delays. We know the holidays can be stressful as it is as you prepare for the feast and celebration, family, fun, freedom, football. It's all the good F's in your life. Don't want to get sick during that time. 10% off with code RSBN10. Code RSBN10, 10% off. And this company believes in freedom and choice, just like we believe here at Right Side Broadcasting Network. No red tape, no bureaucracy, no insurance, no problem. Just life-saving medications there for you at allfamilypharmacy.com/RSBN. Monetary gold for wealth and security preservation. We know that 2 banks have failed this year. BRICS nations are divesting from the American dollar. Goodness gracious, the dollar has lost 40% of its purchasing value in 2 decades. So where does that leave you as central banks around the world buying up gold and silver in this bull market? $4,500 an ounce. That's what gold is rated at. Silver not far behind at $50. So it's smart to rearrange and diversify your savings, your retirement, your pensions, everything you worked hard for with tangible gold and silver. Hot commodities that have stood the test of time throughout human history for over 5,000 years. RSBNforthegold.com. RSBNforthegold.com. Call today. Do not delay. Ask how you can eliminate the IRA fees permanently and for life. That's 888-617-7994. Thank you to Monetary Gold for sponsoring us on the right side of history. And with some of those savings, why not trade and bet on the biggest questions in America, including who will President Trump pardon this year? Is it Steve Bannon to Changpeng Zhao to Roger Ver, amongst perhaps some surprise pardons? Will Bitcoin hit 150K before March Madness? Will my Chicago Bears win a conference championship? It's about time if they can pull it off. But it's like what Barack Hussein Obama said about Joe Biden: never underestimate his ability to bleep things up. And that's the truth of Chicago teams right at the end of the season. So I will wait and watch as my Bears are doing much better than anticipated. Scan that QR code now, Kalshi.com/RSBN. As we await the latest news from the Trump White House, we have a press gaggle outside of the West Wing entrance just in case, with the Marines standing at attention when he is there. That means President Trump working in the ornate and much more golden Oval Office. As we saw the Walk of Fame this week, what do you think about all the renovations President Trump doing there at the White House, from the ballroom at 9,000 square feet per the blueprints and the renovations of the East Wing to everything that's happened in the Oval Office, with over 20 portraits celebrating the life and legacies of great American leaders? The history in that small Oval Office, something very special. And President Trump, it's fun to have a president who seems to be a huge fan of it all, as he usually dives into the greatness of this country and why it matters that we celebrate it and we recognize that, or where we come from in nearly 250 years of celebrating this country. Now, you might have seen the Democrats really go off the rails over the last few hours, seemingly and potentially violating 18 U.S. Code 2387 with sedition and an apparent coup d'etat is what they are calling for against President Trump, as we are joined by Ashley Brassfield of the Daily Caller, Capitol Hill reporter, and our eyes and ears on the ground there. Ashley, so some great reporting this week, as always. It seems as if Florida Congressman Corey Mills has a lot of issues.
Yeah, I'd say so. You know, this Plaskett vote was kind of the main feature this week, the text message exchanges between her and Jeffrey Epstein, of course. But the Democrats played a little game here with a little bit of a retaliatory censure vote on Corey Mills. This is the second time they've threatened to do this, actually. And also, Rep. Nancy Mace actually put forward a vote to censor Corey Mills herself after this, due to the fact that Plaskett's vote to censor her failed. So very interesting situation. A lot of scandals surrounding Congressman Corey Mills right now. He's from, of course, the state of Florida. And we've seen there's things like sextortion, money issues, questions about his service, which he's put out a statement about in the military specifically, and many more things that have just come out with really in the last year. A lot of good reporting from the Blaze on all those things. But, you know, this censure vote, very telling and kind of weaponized in a way against Republicans by Democrats.
Well, you also have Congressman Dan Crenshaw apparently is banned from a congressional trip now with international travel based on an alcohol-related issue. It's really an interesting thing. I mean, it's frustrating to watch because you even have Mr. Blumenthal, the senator from Connecticut. It goes on both sides of the aisle, where they either lie about their military service, or you have drinking incidents or restraining orders, as in Mr. Mills' situation. Of course, you're innocent until proven guilty, but they fight to stay in Congress. I think Speaker Johnson's right. We need to raise the level and the bar of Congress. Again, there's many people that are good people serving the will of their constituents, but we really have some characters in the House of Representatives.
Yeah, it's hard to get away from. You know, I quote Congressman Tim Burchett actually on this. He said, you know, this ain't a dadgum swamp, it's a sewer. And that's kind of what I think we've been seeing a lot this week, really on both sides. And I think it makes you question, you know, the representatives we send up to DC and why a lot of the American people do not trust them. Of course, there's even, you know, government contracts specifically with Corey Mills talking about, you know, I guess weapons trading possibly within that, which is incredible considering he's on the Intel committee. So, I mean, questions should be being raised. There's this element of accountability that the American people never really get from, you know, higher up people in DC. And I think it's very frustrating to see going on both sides here. So I think it's a bipartisan thing. And, you know, you can go from stock trading issues to, you know, a multitude of things that the hypocrisy is, you know, goes both ways.
Yeah, perhaps he should consider stepping aside for the good of the country and for the good of Republican efforts in 2026, because today we had this resolution condemning socialism and 98 Democrats voting nay on that. I remember when I ran for office, there's a voluntary thing to sign up for in most states that states that you are against communism, but I guess those people missed the memo.
Yeah, you know, I think this is very reflective of what's happened now since the November election of Zohran Mamdani in New York. And of course, he'll be at the White House in just about an hour actually now. But I think there is this idea, especially in these blue cities, where, you know, people that are highly educated can't get jobs after, you know, getting their degrees. And they, you know, have to go work at coffee shops in like Brooklyn, New York City area. And it's very frustrating for them. And I think they have a feeling that, you know, the capitalist system's failing him, and then therefore this, I guess the symptom of that would be to implement socialism really here. So I think that's the frustration there. I mean, affordability has been that buzzword ever since that election on both sides, really, and putting forth a plan to do that. I think is the next step probably for Republicans here and going into the 2026 midterm elections. And this vote, I think it's kind of smoke and mirrors and a little bit. I think it's probably a good thing that it happened today with Mamdani going to the White House. It's symbolic in a certain aspect, but I think people want to see what Congress can do on the issue of affordability. We see these votes with anti-Semitism, they are important issues, but I think the American people, especially after the last 5 months with the government shutdown, recess, whether it be the nominations that are trying to get put through for President Trump. I think it could be a little frustrating, especially with everything going on right now. And I hear this a lot from my Gen Z friends. So, but I do think it is symbolic.
Oh, it is very much so. And we started the show with Congressman Al Green's ridiculous comments about impeachment. So the Democrats have played their cards. They've showed their hand. And not related, but Congressman Mark Green in Tennessee 7, speaking of Mr. Burchett, not far from his district. Apparently, the Soros groups, they're putting dark money into that race. Do you actually think they have a chance come December 2nd? And Mark Green, Al Green, not related, but Congressman Green, who was a very steady voice of reason in Congress, leaving for bigger and better adventures outside of Congress, like many are seeking governorships or even the private sector because of how frustrating it is. But do you think the Democrats actually have a shot on December 2nd in this special election?
Well, I think the entire incentive of the dark money flow actually in this election is to put aside the Democrat candidate and prop up the independent candidate here that actually dropped out of the GOP primary after losing. And that's the strategy here that's so interesting. This was done by the 1630 group. It's a segment of Arabella Advisors. Everybody might know this from George Soros, very popular name, Alex Soros, Democrat fund that donates to a lot of Democrat causes specifically. So I think it is an interesting tactic they're starting to do, especially with this special election. There's only 2 vacancies currently within the House of Representatives, that being Mark Green's seat and another Democrat seat. So I think this is just another tactic by Democrat dark money to really just prop up an independent candidate to sidestep the Trump endorsed candidate. So, I mean, Tennessee, as we all know, is a very Republican, heavily held state, to say the least, but they really are trying their darndest to flip it, especially, I would say, after COVID. There was a lot of people from California that moved to the state, especially around the Nashville area. That's where this election is kind of in a way taking place. So I think it's going to be an interesting one for sure.
Yes, as I am enjoying the Southeast, and I apologize to my new Southern friends that a lot of Chicago has moved down to this area because it's a bit more affordable, better people, and we got to run away from all of the communist policies of a deep blue state. But bear with me here, Ashley, as I read 18 U.S. Code 2387. I think the most disturbing thing that's happened this week is the fact that these group of veteran Democrats, we thank them for their service, and they have plausible deniability the way they worded their argument in a bizarre video, telling military members that they don't have to follow illegal orders. So this code is basically surrounding the activities affecting armed forces, generally speaking, criminalizing acts that cause insubordination, disloyalty, or mutiny within the United States military, prohibiting individuals from advising, counseling, which I think is very interesting here, or urging such actions, or from distributing materials that do so. This offense is punishable by a fine, imprisonment for up to 10 years, or both. President Trump raised the ranks on it and said insubordination punishable by death. I think in both situations, it would just not hold up in a court of law, civil or criminal, based on what the Democrats said, based on what President Trump said. But I find it deeply disturbing, as if they are suggesting a military coup d'etat.
Yeah, it feels like a PR stunt a little bit by the Democrats here, and they kind of got what they wanted in a way with the president's response. I think you're right. I don't think it would hold up in a court of law here. But, the video itself is very, they're bouncing around what they actually mean by this. I think maybe if some of us in the media think, oh, possibly it's the, those Venezuelan boat strikes that are occurring or something along those lines, but they don't explicitly say it in this video. And I saw Alyssa Slotkin, she's a Michigan senator, and she was on Stephen Colbert's show last night. And, she was being asked about the specific video because of the attention it's been getting. And it's very interesting because she, many the people in that video, Mark Kelly, who is a former NASA astronaut, Alyssa Slotkin was a CIA intelligence officer. And, they won't explicitly say what they mean in this, but at the same time, they have these former careers. And she even said on Colbert that she doesn't believe that there's a deep state and I just kind of laugh at that because, I think a lot of the American people in a lot of ways consider, some of these agencies and lifelong people that have worked in them as kind of the problem and the, I guess swamp creatures that President Trump talks about. But I think it's beating around an issue and it's not beneficial. It's not helping anyone. You're asking military members who risk their lives every day, tier 1 operators who go and put their lives on the line for this country to defy the commander in chief. So I think that's a separate issue. Of course, the Trump statements are another. But, it just seems detrimental going forward. It's a precedent that is not appropriate, in my opinion.
Absolutely. And we saw that. I was changing channels last night, right, left, and center, and it seemed like they all had their chain of command, their talking points on, it was that time when he said, can't you shoot to kill, or talking about the actual insurrections and the BLM riots that were happening in D.C. during COVID. God knows, after the Republican convention, when President Trump gave his speech from the South Lawn, remember, we were all outside because of COVID at the time. Senator Rand Paul and his wife Kelly, two wonderful people, almost literally taken over by the mob. If it was not for United States, the police, the Capitol Hill police, that would have been a much worse situation. Talk about an insurrection, as I would define it, or at least sedition in that, a terrible situation. And of course, they were not talking about that. So when pressed by right, left, and center. Oh, go ahead.
Even the military members that were not, reinstated for the COVID-19 vaccine, with it being a low, I would say low chance of them catching COVID at the time. That was a major issue. And Alyssa Slotkin and all these Democrat senators didn't speak up during that issue as well. So I think that just contributes to it.
Yeah, excellent point. That is so true as what was the direct order, and they cannot name said illegal order. So we'll see where that fallout goes in the coming weeks. Now, you also wrote about Donald Korb, his nomination withdrawn from the Treasury Department. Do you think we'll have a couple of more people to fill these vacancies? President Trump wants Secretary Bessent at the Fed to replace too late Jerome Powell, but Secretary Bessent said, I really like my job.
Yeah, he's got a lot on his hands. And the IRS is quite the place. I would say it's part of one of the biggest cleanups they have to do in the administration. Donald Korb was being put as the lead counsel for the IRS they were operating distinctly with the Treasury Department at the same time. But he was caught basically giving donations in the last 10 years to Democrats, specifically one of the former Biden administration cabinet members. She was the governor of Rhode Island in this case. I would butcher her last name, but it's Gina Rasmussen or something along those lines. But yes, she was caught giving those donations to her. And so, that story alone, the Democrat donations with a nominee like that, I think would spell any red flags that the administration would have to pull a nomination like that. Daily Caller was actually the first to report on the donations aspect of this. I know some others were taking credit for it, but, this is part of the thing that good reporting does is, you see those, FEC elections, Federal Election Commission donations, and within even just the state donations. And that's what kind of, I would say, good reporting is. And seeing that, that we were able to do it, that's great.
And you are doing just that. Daily Caller's Ashley Brassfield. Honestly, is there a better reporter in Washington, D.C.? I don't think so, but that's just my own humble correspondent opinion today. As she paints the town red, our eyes and ears in Washington, D.C. Again, Ashley Brassfield covering the Hill and all things Federal City for us at the Daily Caller. Have a great weekend. And in case we don't see you, happy Thanksgiving. And we look forward to seeing you soon.
Happy Thanksgiving. Thank you.
And we're covering the latest from the Trump White House, where in roughly 30 minutes, President Trump to meet with the self-described socialist, but we all know he's a communist, Mr. Mamdani, the mayor-elect of the Big Apple. Thank you to angelpaste.com, where you can also paint the town red, as Ashley does on a regular basis, with a facial spray. All natural. Wonderful. Whether it's a first date to the 50th wedding anniversary, Always makes your skin look nice. I use the Miracle Cream itself, the OG, vitamin B infused, non-GMO, no chemicals. You saw me use it right here on the show itself. And also the orange option with vitamin C, again, non-GMO, no chemical. They are very committed to making America healthy again. They are Christian owned. They hire veterans, and they are based in the Lone Star State of Texas. Spring, to be exact, right out of the Houston Metroplex on the Gulf of America. It's angelpace.com. Thank you for sponsoring us on the right side of history. Now, the holidays are right around the corner. We have Black Friday showing up with some great deals. This is perhaps one of the best and the most essential for the person that's hard to buy for. CovePure.com/RSBN. The $250 off the holiday sale. Scan that QR code now to drink pure and live pure. It's CovePure.com/RSBN. With the lead poisoning we found in Flint, Michigan. Remember that story roughly a decade ago where municipal Democrats, even state Republicans, really failed the city of Flint in that moment. And you don't want to drink poison. And there's fluoride in the water. There's pesticides. There's agricultural runoff. There's even hormone-disrupting blockers like birth control in tap water. So why not use this Clearwave technology? They are on the cusp and the leading edge of this in reverse osmosis companies, and they want to protect you and what matters most. Even JAMA Pediatrics doing a study, children losing 2 or more points of their IQ if they're drinking from the tap on a regular basis. And with all that COVID learning loss we had just a few short years ago, you have to protect what matters most and do so with CovePure.com/RSBN. What's also great about this, if you're a tea drinker, sometimes it takes a moment for that steeping to happen, for the water to heat up. This heats up the water immediately, as you saw how easy it is to use. And if you're renting right now, no need for pipes, for drilling holes, for the plumber to come over. No, what you see is what you get. It's just like a coffee maker on your kitchen counter. So easy to use. CovePure.com/RSBN. $250 off right now. The holiday sale right there for you to get started on your Black Friday deals. And also, we would like to thank Crypto.com for this historic moment, a $6.4 billion acquisition and partnership with Crypto and Trump Media Group. Yes, the same team that brought you Truth Social and saved the First Amendment and freedom of speech online and brought President Trump back online to speak his piece. A CRO strategy that might just fit into your diversification of your income, your savings, your retirement, and your portfolios, including properties. This is very important to look into, and it will change the ball game. Crypto.com for this historic moment. Again, a CRO strategy in the blockchain that will change the ball game and actually puts the plans of the globalists up against the ropes with wanting to make a federal currency all online. This gives you the freedom to do an online currency that's not federally mandated, but rather privately owned. A $6.4 billion deal. Trump Media Group coming together with Crypto.com. Join the historic moment today as it is Friday, November 21st, 2025. We are just days away from celebrating Thanksgiving. The press gaggle is ready to go just in case this meeting between President Trump and Mayor-elect Mamdani of New York City, scheduled for 3 o'clock Eastern, is currently closed press, but that might open up to questions. We'll be with you here to watch that just in case that does, because I think everyone wants to be a fly on the wall for that, considering this is capitalism versus communism in real time, as it's been an interesting week, not only at the White House, but throughout the federal city as America gears up for an all-American holiday known as Thanksgiving. And that's the best thing you could do, is just simply sit back and give thanks, join with family and friends, and enjoy church, football, faith, family, friends. It's what it's all about. As Secretary McMahon was able to join Press Secretary Caroline Leavitt yesterday to give us an update on the Department of Education and the plans to eliminate that from the federal government with cut number 10, Mr. Producer.
My purpose here is to speak directly to the American families, not just you, but to the American families about the work this administration is doing in education to reverse our national decline with a hard reset of our educational system. That reset was a top campaign promise from President Trump to send education back to the states and end Washington's micromanagement of education once and for all. This week, we took the most decisive steps thus far to make good on this promise to you. We have linked 6 groundbreaking partnerships with other federal agencies to delegate education department programs that are redundant with existing programs at Labor, State, Interior, and HHS. These interagency agreements to cut our own bureaucratic bloat are a key step in our efforts to shift educational authority from Washington, D.C. to your state education agency, your local superintendent, your local school board, entities that are accountable to you, and we encourage parents to always be involved. Cutting federal bureaucracy is never a popular move among D.C. insiders. A chorus of anti-Trump voices have come out of the woodwork to complain that we are defunding education, harming students, or acting without a plan. This could not be further from the truth. The majority of Americans across the country handed President Trump the popular vote precisely because they have seen the brokenness of a top-down education system run by the federal government. They're painfully aware that only 3 out of 10 students can read proficiently at their grade level. They know that college students are collectively $1.7 trillion in debt, and less than half of college graduates get a job that actually uses the degree which they studied so hard to get. They see more teachers than ever before leaving the profession due to burnout, over-regulation, and lack of autonomy in the classroom. Anti-Trump voices are stirring up fear that returning education to the states is a draconian action. When Americans hear that we are shutting down the department, but given no other details, 51% oppose it. But when those same Americans are informed of our plans to preserve important elements of our work in other federal agencies and to maintain the K-12 funding that is distributed to the states, that number flips to an even greater majority at 56%. And they support returning education to the states and breaking up the bureaucracy. That's because the Department of Education is a pass-through entity. It doesn't educate a single student. The money it sends to states for education can be sent directly without waste. The Democrats' government shutdown proved that without a doubt, and I'll reiterate what you said, that the Department of Education was not necessary during the shutdown. Now, this is what I've seen already on my 50-state tour that I've embarked on. Educators are innovating in their schools. States are customizing their budgets and standards, and post-secondary institutions are planning for the economy of the future. But we're not leading them. They are informing us. That's why our final mission as a department is to fully empower states to carry the torch of our educational renaissance. Education is local. It should be overseen locally by those who best know local needs. We're not ending federal support for education. We are ending federal micromanagement and paving the way for education renewal through state reforms like school choice, the science of reading, and restoring the right priorities in higher education. President Trump promised to send education back to the states, and we're keeping that promise. America's next generation will look back on the work we've carried out, thankful for an education system that prioritizes students over bureaucracy.
Thank you to Secretary McMahon for prioritizing federalism, the 10th Amendment, and bringing back states' rights to education, something very much needed, especially after No Child Left Behind, which was a disaster. It was Ted Kennedy's Senate plan all along, and a Republican president, George W. Bush, signed it into law. And that standardized tests for everyone's under the same umbrella of the federal government proved to be a massive mistake and a bloated bureaucracy that seems to be coming to an end. But it's that time of year. Make sure you have your medicine cabinet stocked up because you don't want to celebrate the holiday sick. And with Thanksgiving next week to Hanukkah and Christmas coming up, make sure you prepare with life-saving medication, 300 in fact, from ivermectin to hydrochloroquine, methylene blue, NAD+, and emergency medical kits to antibiotics, antivirals, also Tamiflu, important this time of year with code RSBN10. That's RSBN10. Don't let sickness steal the holidays. And scan that QR code right there to get all of the information on saving 10% off of your order. No red tape, no bureaucracy, just life-saving medications with this leading online family pharmacy that it's reviewed by a U.S. doctor with a pharmaceutical note and sent directly to your door. allfamilypharmacy.com/RSBN. Make sure your financial health is in order as well. Diversifying with gold and silver, more important than ever before. Grab that complimentary presidential gold guide today, 888-617-7994. Ask how you can eliminate those IRA fees permanently for life. Sometimes those get in the way, and really a bad excuse when it comes to diversification of the retirement, the savings, everything you worked hard for. RSBNforthegold.com. We know the BRICS nations divesting from the dollar. Also, the dollar losing 40% of its purchasing power over the last 2 decades. 2 banks failed this year. So Rich Dad, Poor Dad, the author Robert Kiyosaki, really passionate about this, as well as other leaders on Wall Street and Main Street. Monetary gold truly is the best in the business. And as President Trump said in 2016, the hell do you have to lose? Just grab a complimentary presidential gold guide. At the worst, it's a collector's item with Mr. 45 and 47 on the front cover. But I think you'll find some good options that are tailored to you. So whether it's buying up properties or creating that generational wealth for your family, monetary gold, a great stocking stuffer as well. If you're a grandfather, grandmother, or a really nice parent and your kids have been good this year, instead of coal, maybe leave some lumps of gold in their stocking with monetary gold. RSBNforthegold.com. As we cover the latest from the Trump White House, Venice.ai/RSBN. One of the smartest things you can upload into your phone right now. Go to the App Store right now and do this. 20% off with code RSBN, because Sam Altman has warned us about our conversations over these things, whether written or even oral discussions and words. What about Alexa? A lot of us have that in the home, and it's rather interesting now that we were afraid of these things back in the 50s and 60s, but now we have recording devices all over the place. And to have that online footprint that really invades our privacy and violates our constitutional rights, good to have an application that's actually protecting you. Available at the App Store and Google Play right now. It's Venice.ai/RSBN. Get 20% off now with code RSBN. Protect what matters most, your privacy, in this digital day and age as AI continues to grow and grow and grow. And having a digital footprint that is positive and healthy is just as important as keeping up your reputation with your neighbors. Venice.ai/RSBN. 20% off now with code RSBN. And Caroline Leavitt, the superstar, the press secretary, yesterday detailing a number of different things for us, but we do know that this president, this administration, has been more transparent than most in American history in nearly 250 years, especially in the modern era, with cut number 8 explaining that to the press.
Is very frank and honest with everyone in this room. You've all seen it yourself. You've all experienced it yourselves, and I think it's one of the many reasons that the American people reelected this president, because of his frankness. And he calls out fake news when he sees it. He gets frustrated with reporters when you lie about him, when you spread fake news about him and his administration. But he also is the most transparent president in history, and he gives all of you in this room, as you all know, unprecedented access. You are in the Oval Office almost every day asking the president questions. And so I think the president being frank and open and honest to your faces rather than hiding behind your backs is frankly a lot more respectful than what you saw in the last debate upstairs and didn't take your questions. So I think everyone in this room should appreciate the frankness and the openness that you get from President Trump on a near daily basis.
As 18 U.S. Code 2387 details, there is a chain of command. And with cut number 9, Press Secretary Leavitt was able to explain to the press how that's appropriately adhered to.
This morning, President Trump accused 6 Democratic lawmakers of seditious behavior punishable by death. Just to be clear, does the president want to execute members of Congress?
No. Let's be clear about what the president is responding to, because many in this room want to talk about the president's response, but not what brought the president to responding in this way. You have sitting members of the United States Congress who conspired together to orchestrate a video message to members of the United States military, to active duty service members, to members of the national security apparatus, encouraging them to defy the president's lawful orders. The sanctity of our military rests on the chain of command. And if that chain of command is broken, it can lead to people getting killed. It can lead to chaos. And that's what these members of Congress who swore an oath to abide by the Constitution are essentially encouraging. We have 1.3 active duty service members in this country. And if they hear this radical message from sitting members of Congress, that could inspire chaos, and it could incite violence, and it certainly could disrupt the chain of command. These 3 members of Congress, I will also add, knew exactly what they were doing. You look at Alyssa Slotkin. She's a former member of the CIA. Mark Kelly was a captain in the U.S. Navy. Maggie Goodlander was a naval officer, and notably, she is also the wife of Joe Biden's national security former advisor, Jake Sullivan. And so these members knew what they were doing. They were leading into their credentials as former members of our military, as veterans, as former members of the national security apparatus to signal to people serving under this commander-in-chief, Donald Trump, that you can defy him and you can betray your oath of office. That is a very, very dangerous message, and it perhaps is punishable by law. I'm not a lawyer. I'll leave that to the Department of Justice and the Department of War to decide.
In addition to those comments, the president and the United States of America will not be participating in the G20 as of right now, scheduled for South Africa because of a number of different items, including the way the South African government has treated Caucasian citizens and the farmers of that country. It's quite a scary situation as we look back to when the president of South Africa visited President Trump in the Oval Office and had to watch his very own videos and deal with Ernie Els and Retief Goosen, both South African Americans, dual citizenship there, and famous golfers speaking out against the genocide happening in what once was a very good democracy, but now far-left socialists taking over that country in an extraordinary way and creating a genocide in and of itself, in addition to what's been taking place in Nigeria and the Sudan. Cut number 7, Mr. Producer.
The United States is not participating in official talks at the G20 in South Africa. I saw the South African president running his mouth a little bit against the United States and the president of the United States earlier today, and that language is not appreciated by the president or his team. The ambassador or the representative of the embassy in South Africa is simply there to recognize that the United States will be the host of the G20. They are receiving that send-off at the end of the event. They are not there to participate in official talks, despite what the South African president is falsely.
Thank you to mypillow.com/RSBN and Mike Lindell with the early Black Friday special. No one does it better. The original My Slippers, these are quite comfy, and he's throwing in a free leather spray. It's a protectant spray for those wonderful slippers, whether you wear them out on the town or just throughout the house. You know, I really like to do, sometimes I'll bring the slippers over if you're wearing the shoes inside because, I don't know, you track all that stuff outside, then you have to wear the shoes over to a house party, and I don't want to bring in, God knows what's from the outside into the house. So it's nice to bring a pair of My Slippers in to be nice to your hosts. Under $40 now, $39.98 with the promo code RSBN. Easy to remember. mypillow.com/RSBN. Call today. Do not delay. It's 800-836-7566. Support Mike Lindell, the master marketer, at mypillow.com/RSBN. Great Christmas gifts for your night to be a little bit easier and your morning to give you a little bit more pep in your step. 2,000 products at mypillow.com/RSBN. Save with code RSBN. If you like what you see, your go-to live desk in this 2025 era, this golden era, in fact, that you, the voters, led to on November 5th of last year when you elected Donald Trump as your 47th Commander-in-Chief, the 50th Vice President, J.D. Vance, the 119th Congress, gearing up for their second session in January of next year. Republican control of the federal government and so many successes this year alone, the biggest tax cuts in history to rooting out waste, fraud, and abuse. They are just getting started, including lowering those prescription drug costs. But we can sure use your help here at Right Side Broadcasting Network to continue on that mission. rsbnetwork.com/donate. Also, text RSBN to 801-801. Thank you for your support of our network. As I had the opportunity to interview Mike Brest, his Washington Examiner take on what has happened with these Democrats calling for a military coup d'etat and for service people to not listen to illegal orders, yet they cannot cite any alleged illegal order. Very interesting discussion that led to President Trump's description of sedition is punishable by death over Truth Social. And President Trump shared a Mike Brest analysis, and we had the exclusive opportunity to speak with him just yesterday. We'll have that interview running for you, then do a changing of the guard here, and Mr. Matthew Alvarez will close us out for the weekend. You have a very happy Thanksgiving in case I don't see you. And in the meantime, enjoy Mike Brest. Welcome to RSBN's Live Desk. It's Mike Brest, who is the defense reporter for Washington Examiner. President Trump sharing your great reporting on Truth Social. Let's break this story down, Mike. This is kind of strange. We really have not seen anything like it, or I shouldn't speak for you. Have you seen anything like this in regards to these member of Congress stating unspecified illegal orders that are allegedly happening by the commander-in-chief?
So I think a lot of what this comes down to is Democrats being concerned with President Trump's usage of the military. And so, as you mentioned, there was this group of 6 Democrat lawmakers who all have a background in national security, either the military or the intelligence community. And they came out with this unprompted video earlier this week warning service members about the possibility they could be given illegal orders and not to follow them. But they didn't specify what those illegal orders could be, whether they've already been given, and really it was just a vague warning. And so it got the president angry about sort of the notion or the connotation that they were presenting. And so the president shot back afterwards and accused them of treason and sedition and said that they should be tried for it.
Yes, and these senators, Elisa Slotkin of Michigan, Mark Kelly of Arizona, Congressman Jason Crow of Colorado, Maggie Goodlander of New Hampshire, Chris Deluzio of Pennsylvania, and Chrissy Houlihan, also of the Commonwealth of Pennsylvania. Mike, what are the implications that can happen in civil military related issues? We're unique as a constitutional republic, and even those who enjoy freedom around the world don't necessarily have civilian command of the military. So what would happen here if you would have, as history has shown us, a military triumvirate of past governments that have tried to usurp the authority of their executives?
So you bring up a very good point, which is about civilian control of the military. And so everyone should know that the commander-in-chief, the president, is the leader of the military. And the president is obviously a civilian. And then each service branch has a military and civilian leader. And so the civilians are supposed to be in charge of the military, the president being the top ranking official. And so the president has the right to order the military to do whatever they see fit. However, there are certain limitations when it comes to acts of war and declaring war, which is actually a congressional responsibility. And so, as you mentioned, there are these competing concerns from Democrats about what the military could do or should do if an illegal order is given. But also, as I mentioned, there was no specifics given in this short video that they produced. And so they didn't say, watch out for X, Y, and Z. They just said, you may be given an illegal order and you shouldn't follow it. And so the audience should know that if a service member is given an illegal order and it is deemed to be an illegal order, they could face charges afterwards should they carry that out.
And how does the military interpret that specifically with the unlawful orders as mentioned by these congressmen and senators?
So it's a little bit of a technicality, and it's somewhat in the weeds of the conversation. But broadly speaking, as you said, as we've talked about, the civilians control the military, the president being the top person. And so there have been a couple different cases over the years in which military service members, American service members, have been held responsible for following illegal orders. However, those are rare cases. They don't happen often. And a lot of the precedent that has been set actually dates back to the Vietnam War.
And I think we saw that cinematically in 1992 with A Few Good Men and that wonderful play by Aaron Sorkin, where you have the code red that was followed by those Marines. And of course, Jack Nicholson's character, I won't exactly repeat the line, but he said, I GD. Right, you did. That's what I did. So really a dramatic moment that we would hope not many would see and really has been rather rare throughout American history in 250 years.
It has been. And I think what the Democrat lawmakers are talking about without talking about are the strikes off of Venezuela's coast, the president and the secretary's decision to deploy National Guards troops to American cities. And so these are ongoing operations that have been, there are court cases pending about the legalities of these operations and these decisions. And in terms of Venezuela, there are concerns on Capitol Hill about the legality of the strikes the military has carried out. And so while they didn't say it exactly, it does seem like these were the most likely scenarios that they would be talking about sort of the continuation of these operations.
Yes, all very interesting. Why is this messaging really flaming the, I guess, turning away from civil discourse? We hear from both sides that we need to take down the temperature, yet time and again, you hear fascist, 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 racist, 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 Russia, 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 impeachment hoax 1 and 2. It seems like it's coming more from the far left than anyone else, but you hear this echo and chorus of unity in a quick moment, then it seems to turn to a different direction.
I think it goes both ways. And so based on what you were talking about, you do see Democrats who are critical of the president's agenda, even though in some cases he is carrying out his agenda in very lawful manners. They just don't like the policies. And so there are questions about sort of the distinction between a policy they don't like and an illegal order. And so that seems to be what is sort of being highlighted in this moment, or should be highlighted in this moment, is that I'm sure there were service members who were in the services under President Biden asked to carry out missions and operations and directives that they didn't agree with, but they still did because of the civilian control of the military.
Yes, and we've seen that with the Secretary of War, Pete Hegseth, and our Vice President, J.D. Vance, serving with distinction in the Iraq conflict and learning later that there were no weapons of mass destruction. So we had that failure of intelligence on the American government's part back in the invasion dating to 2003. Now, Mike, where do you see President Trump's reaction shaping the story in the next phase of this?
So I think the president's reaction is really sort of what is becoming, or what is sucking up most of the oxygen at this point, because he went to such extreme lengths on social media saying that they should be tried for treason, because what the Democrats and their argument would be, we didn't do anything illegal or anything wrong because we were encouraging them not to follow illegal orders. They didn't say ever, don't follow legal orders that we disagree with. And so that really is somewhat of the crux of their argument. And so I think the president's comments really poured some gasoline on this conversation, speaking. And so I think at this point, I don't expect to see more fallout specifically on this, but I do think the issue of Democrats being concerned about the Trump administration's use of the military will continue.
As a very fair journalist at the Washington Examiner, Mike, do you fear anything like an Ides of March moment? Because I'm not suggesting that this would happen, but we saw that then in the Roman Republic, senators execute the leader, Julius Caesar. We've had 2 assassination attempts of a major portion against President Trump just last year. Do you fear it inspires more would-be copycats with the rhetoric coming from the far left or the extremes really across the country?
I think we've seen a lot of political violence and an increase of it, according to most reports in the last couple of years. And it's a scary time. And I do think it's incumbent on all parties to try and lower the temperature, on both sides of the aisle. And so whether that's the White House in their response or Democrats who are being vague in their concerns, I think it would be best for the American public if everyone is explicit in what they're talking about and intentional in trying to lower the temperature.
And to return, always good advice and common sense for those inside and outside the Beltway, no question about that. What about, as you mentioned before, we used to declare war through Congress. If I'm correct, back in World War II, that happened with the infamous speech, well, really a famous speech about the infamous actions of the Japanese Empire when President Franklin Delano Roosevelt asked the Congress of the United States in a rather radio-esque manner of the time, as he was a great orator, to declare war on the Empire of Japan for the date which will live in infamy, December 7th of 1941, an anniversary we're actually fast approaching. Do you find that we will get back to that practice, or with the late, great Henry Hyde, a congressman from Illinois, mentioning, hey, we just don't really do that anymore. It's more of the operations from the executive with congressional approval, as we saw in different conflicts like the Iraq War to questionably Vietnam at different times, and even the engagement in Korea?
I think you raise a very interesting point, which is that over the last couple of decades, Congress has largely ceded some of their power to the executive branch when it comes to using the military. And so we're less than a year into the Trump administration, and they've carried out strikes in the Caribbean. They've carried out a major operation in Iran, and then they also carried out sustained operations for several weeks in Yemen, none of which they sought direct congressional approval because they used either existing authorities or said what they were doing didn't meet the threshold for military operations that would require congressional approval. And so all of these things and decisions by the Trump administration build off the previous administrations, whether that's President Biden, the first Trump administration, or Obama, dating back to Bush in the aftermath of 9/11, where there were authorities given at that time that are still on the books, the AUMFs, or the authorizations from Congress for military force. And so no one's going to argue that the wars in Iraq and Afghanistan are still going on. And yet at the same time, the authorizations can still be referenced for new military action.
And it's very interesting to look into all of that, because we know, too, with President Reagan, Grenada and also the Iran-Contra scandal led to some various controversies. But we're excited to live in a time where peace seems to be pursued, as this administration, 10 months into it, has made that a very high priority. Mike, where can the good viewers of RSBN see your work with the Washington Examiner?
My byline is on the Examiner's website. My name is Mike Brest, and they can find it there, or I'm on X and other social media platforms.
And you can catch this great article, Democratic Veterans in Congress Urge Service Members to Refuse Unspecified Unlawful Orders. That's the title, by Mr. Mike Brest. Thank you for joining us, the fence reporter from Washington Examiner, and President Trump sharing that article with the world via Truth Social. So that's always fun when a great journalist like yourself gets that spotlight. And please feel free to come back and see us at Right Side Broadcasting Network very soon.
Thank you for having me.
All right, a great interview there with Robert McNeely as we are live looking at the White House right now at 3:03 Eastern Time. I'm Matthew Alvarez. Thanks so much for sticking with us as we get to see possibly the president and the mayor-elect, Zohran Mamdani, of course. Now, that's the question right now. Open press or closed press? That is the question. Currently, today's meeting between the mayor-elect of New York and The president, as you guys know, is listed as a closed event. There are times that it switches at the last second, so we'll see if that happens right here on the fly at Right Side Broadcasting Network. Just getting warmed up, back in the seat here. Great coverage there with Robert McNeely for the past hour, interviewing Ashley Brassfield as well with the Daily Caller based in D.C. So great to see the coverage here at the network, and for all of you to be tuning in, streaming in, wherever you're watching across the country, and in some cases across the world. There's a number of people that watch in the UK and some other countries out there. So yeah, this is going to be interesting. We'll see if it becomes open press. We'll have it here for you. In the meantime, before we get to a few sponsors, I was thinking just yesterday about what really defines we the people. And I came up with these 10 words, stuff that we talk about all the time, stuff that you talk about as well. But here are the 10 words: God, family, country, freedom, truth, justice, and the American way. So those are 10 words right there. Think about that, right? That's what it's all about. God, family, country, freedom, truth, justice, and the American way. That's what we the people are all about. And that's what we want to see moving forward in this administration. We know with President Trump that he is for all of the things we just said. We're hoping to see many, many more wins, many things still to happen yet. But we're going to cover it as it happens, as we see what my buddy called the guy that's meeting President Trump today. I was talking to him on the phone the other day, not President Trump, but my buddy in Florida. He said, this is Dami the Commie, Zohran Mamdani. Thought it was an interesting name there. So let's go with All Family Pharmacy before we get into some of our interviews live here on Right Side Broadcasting Network. Of course, here at RSBN, we always try and point all of you toward companies that actually support freedom and give you real choices. And that's exactly why we trust All Family Pharmacy. They're not your traditional pharmacy pushing flu shots. All Family Pharmacy is different. They give you options. They encourage you to take charge of your health, stay prepared, and have the right medications on hand before sickness hits. And of course, heading into the holidays, that's important. The travel, the cold weather, the family gatherings. Most of the time, that's when everyone can get sick. So why wait until someone is miserable and you're scrambling for appointments or pharmacy lines? All Family Pharmacy has everything your family might need: antivirals, antibiotics, ivermectin, hydroxychloroquine, mebendazole, and even these emergency kits and supplements. All doctor reviewed and delivered fast to your door. So while you're out doing your holiday shopping, there's nothing wrong with adding a few essential medications your family might need. Stock up, stay prepared, and keep your family healthy this season. Visit allfamilypharmacy.com/RSBN and use code RSBN10 for 10% off your order. All right, let's look at callshe.com as well. Callshe.com/RSBN. You have the QR code there. You've got the app and the website. So 3 places to access this great sponsor. Of course, more than 1 million people on this site. And I would think one of the questions should be on Callshe right now: will this become an open press event when it comes to the president meeting with the mayor-elect of New York? As of right now, we know it's a closed press event, so we'll see. If it opens, we'll take you right there live. In the meantime, callshe.com/RSBN. You can check it out if you'd like. Let's also go to angelpace.com out of Spring, Texas, of course. They hire military veterans, a great, great sponsor. People that are on the right side of history, loving God, family, country, freedom, loving America, right? And also loving these great products. So if you'd like to purchase, especially in time for Christmas, you can do so. Angelpace.com, and then go to the RSBN promo code there, and you'll get quite the discount off. All right, let's bring on a great conservative host on the network right now, someone that really needs no introduction, but here she is. Her name is Silk, of course. Silk, thanks so much for joining us on Right Side once again.
Wow, thank you so much for having me on.
Definitely.
Hope you're doing well.
I'm doing well. You're just rushing into the studio here and ready to go. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
But let's talk about the situation today. My buddy on the phone said his name is Dami the Commie, Zohran Mamdani. That's the name that's going around for a few people out there. What do you think about that name as we're awaiting to see the president and the mayor-elect if it becomes open press?
Well, that's great. That's a great name for him, but it's too long for me. I just like calling him McDummy. That works for me. It's easier, it's shorter, and it gets straight to the point, but to each his own.
Yeah. Exactly. I mean, your thoughts right now, though, about New York City in the sense of the direction of the Big Apple. Aren't you surprised that communism's even in the country the way it is now officially?
I am very surprised and shocked and at all that it's being allowed to be in our country. And when you look at, once again, SNAP and the way that they have the healthcare, Obamacare set up, it's all a tool of socialism, communism, giving people stuff for free and keeping people government dependent. And now to have someone to have ran an election and got installed, because he was installed. I'm sorry, I don't care how you slice it, dice it, flip that up, or rub it down. He was installed. And I call him a loophole politician. We have a lot of loophole politicians, people that was born in a foreign country here running our country and saying that they're running different positions and offices for the best interest of the people. The best interest of which people? Not the American people. So it's really a sad day for New York and New Yorkers, but I think that New Yorkers needs to rise up. And when I say rise up, I'm not talking about rising up and fighting. I'm talking about utilizing the laws that's on the book to go down there and see about how this guy got to win this election, check the votes out, what's the machines, you got to do your audits, you got to do what you got to do as citizens of New York and not let this guy just get up in there and just take and run, turn this here town into some type of radical Islamic Muslim town invoking Sharia law.
And on top of that, it looks like about 1 million plus people voted for Zohran Mamdani in that election. There are 8 million people in the 5 boroughs of New York City. So it's not like the whole city said, yes, that's the direction we want to go for this country. I don't know if you caught this interview the other day. The president of the Staten Island Young Republican Club came on the program. He's going to be actually following you in just a couple minutes. They're talking about seceding from the 5 boroughs. I don't know if that's something that will ever happen for Staten Island, but people are, they can come off and act like this guy's, socialist, everything's cool. But we know at the root of the matter is something that they want to change the way communists do, Marxists and on, want to change our country from top to bottom. Am I right, Silk?
Well, they want to change the country from top to bottom, but let me do a Jen Psaki and circle back on something you just said. 1 million people did not vote for Mamdani, whatever his name is. He was selected, and those are, in my opinion, let me say it like this, to keep myself safe. In my opinion, those votes were the dead people vote, the illegal alien votes. Those are what those votes are. This human beings, American citizens, is not going to vote for their livelihood to be changed into something that they are not accustomed with. That's not going to happen. And listen, we can't run away. We can't run away from this. We can't secede this and just say, okay, we're just going to give up. We can't run away. Just like President Trump, keep your friends close and your enemies closer. Okay, it's basically when I look at this meeting that's going to be going on today. But for the citizens of New York, for the mayors there in New York, in the different cities that's there in New York, look, don't run away from this guy. No. Follow the law. And if you follow the law the right way and can go around their loopholes, he can get out of there, because I don't think he won it fair and square. He didn't win it based off of the American votes. See, when people talk about election deniers, we're not the election deniers. The citizens is being denied free and fair elections by these people that's cheating and allowing all of this cheating to go on in our election process. We're supposed to have access to free and fair elections, not selection. So when these people talk about, oh, these people are winning, they're winning these elections. No, they're not winning. They're stealing these elections. Okay. So I don't for one moment believe that 1 million people voted for their way of living to be changed into something that they are not accustomed to.
Great point. And on top of that, the president's been talking about voter reform for the country. And we know that's the number 19 out of the 20 core promises for the American people, those promises that include voter reform. So looking forward to seeing that happen among a number of things. out of the White House there as it's 3:14 Eastern time. Sok, thanks again. We'll have you back on. This is probably, the fifth time in the past few months, it seems like, but it's great to have you on, Sok.
Well, I'm here for you, darling, and happy Thanksgiving to you and your family. God bless.
Right back at you. Thank you so much. All right, so it's 3:14 Eastern time right now on Right Side Broadcasting Network. You see not a lot of wind there, kind of a damp-looking day in Washington, D.C., as it's Friday, November 21st. So coming up, we'll have the president of the Staten Island Young Republican Club. That's Robert Burkhead. He'll be joining us. And then also, I recently spoke with the American presidential tenor, Christopher Macchio, about his recent visit to the White House. We got his thoughts about the direction of New York City. Let's listen in. And joining us right now, of course, is the American presidential tenor, Christopher Macchio, once again. And, sir, I wanted to ask you about New York City, since that's where you live. I mean, were you born there as well?
I was born out on Long Island, Holbrook and Sag Harbor I was raised in. And then when I started my career, of course, I had to move into the city that never sleeps.
And then tell us about that city now that Mamdani has won. More than 1 million people voted for him, but there's 8 million people in the 5 boroughs. So your thoughts about that whole situation as he will be sworn into office on January 1, 2026.
Yeah, I have my grave concerns, like a lot of people, with some of the positions that he has taken over the years and that has recently made superficial efforts to backpedal from. It's my hope that, he will really see the proverbial light. I am encouraged that because we have a president that is willing to talk with anybody, to make a good deal, that the president has indicated that he will be speaking with the mayor-elect, Mamdani, and trying to come to some understanding, because I think that if it's made clear to him that the federal government is going to make his life as miserable as possible if he actually tries to follow through on some of these more extreme elements of his policies, I think that we have a really good chance of muting and diluting some of these just toxic, cancerous viewpoints and policies that he had advocated during his campaign. So hopefully we're going to get a neutered version of the Mamdani platform, and we'll be able to pass through this period rather quickly, and then hopefully get a mayor more in the mold of course, America's mayor, Rudolph W. Giuliani. Hopefully we can bring somebody like that back into Gracie Mansion. And then, of course, the city will be all the more better off for that.
100%. Christopher Macchio, thank you for your time and thank you for your insight about your reaction to Zohran Mamdani.
Thank you.
And so Christopher Macchio, I mean, he could sing really well, too. By the way, he was at that dinner at the White House just the other night in the East Room in front of all the dignitaries, including the president and others. We'll upload that to our various social media platforms in just a bit, maybe after the broadcast. I know everybody's here to see the president meet the mayor-elect of New York, Zohran Mamdani, if it's open press. So if it opens up, we'll have live pictures there. We'll go right to the White House for that. In the meantime, as you see there, the president said on Wednesday on Truth Social, communist mayor of New York City, Zohran Mamdani, has asked for a meeting. We have agreed that this meeting will take place at the Oval Office on Friday, November 21st, of course, today. So that's where we stand right now. And, according to the White House, today's meeting between the mayor-elect and the president speaks volumes that we have a communist coming to the White House because that's who the Democrat Party elected as the mayor of the largest city in the country. But it also speaks to the fact that President Trump's willing to meet with anyone and try to do what's right for the American people, whether they live in blue states or red states or blue cities. Now, again, only slightly more than 1 million people voted for Mamdani in a city of 8 million people. So let's go now to the president of the Staten Island Young Republican Club, Robert Burkhead. Robert, thank you so much for joining us once again. You were on the show the other day, and here we are again talking about New York. I mean, you're in Staten Island, and you said the population's about, did you say 300 or 500,000?
About 500,000.
Yeah, and that's bigger than a number of towns and cities across the country. So your thoughts about today's meeting and the direction of the largest city in America?
Well, look, I think it's first, thank you for having me on. I think that is a scary time in New York City. I think to your point, almost 1 million people did not vote for Zohran Mamdani. And, I think he was a talking head that got elected, and all these things that he promised, I think he woke up and realized it's going to cost money. And the federal government, no matter who the president is, funds a lot of the programs through federal grants. They fund our police departments, our fire departments, our healthcare. And so I think it was probably a sour reality that he woke up to, and he had to make that call. But I am glad that he is doing it, and that the president is going to meet with him. I don't think the president will ever let New York fall. It's just a sad day that he did win.
It is very sad. My mom was born in Brooklyn, dad in Manhattan. I used to work in New York back in the day. I'm glad that I'm not there. Nothing against Staten Island. I like Staten Island, and I like Long Island and parts of the other boroughs. I mean, we were in the Bronx live with President Trump during that rally. Did you attend that rally in the Bronx?
I was unfortunately not able to make that, but I watched it.
Yeah, I mean, how awesome was that? I mean, there was people from all walks of life in New York cheering for Trump. And you know what? It's not just Donald Trump. It's what he stands for, right? Truth, justice, and the American way, right?
Exactly.
So let's talk about that.
And, I think to your earlier point, God, family, country, there are so many people that believe in that. And you don't necessarily have to be a Republican to believe in that, or a conservative. I mean, that should be common sense values that are instilled in us. But there are so many people out there that disagree with the direction the country was going in. And it's why President Trump won overwhelmingly with a large mandate to govern the country. And so you see these pockets of blue cities, unfortunately. Thankfully, Staten Island is one of the reddest boroughs in the country. Proud to say Staten Island voted for the president 3 times in overwhelming amounts. We have the most red elected officials in the city that thankfully will fight back against this socialism, communist light policies that just don't work. They do not work. And so it's great to see that people came out in the Bronx. There's so many people in Staten Island, and there's a lot of people, quite frankly, all across New York City that did not vote for this gentleman. And I hope he comes to his senses and starts to come more towards democratic values of the JFK years than socialism.
Exactly. And having spent some time there in New York as a local reporter, did some stories on Staten Island. And one of them is kind of funny, and it's this time of year, is the whole thing with the wild turkeys. Aren't there a bunch of turkeys that run around Staten Island?
There's turkeys everywhere. It's the best place to be for Thanksgiving.
I remember doing that story. Anyway, so across the Bayonne Bridge, right to Bayonne, New Jersey and all that. My question to you is, when you're driving around, when you go to the grocery store, when you're, if you have a dog, walking the dog, whatever you're doing, bar, restaurant, whatever. What are people talking about? Are they all talking about Mamdani? Are they actually concerned? Or are they kind of like, oh, yeah, he won't do much?
People are concerned they talk about the affordability crisis. They're the reasons why New York City is so unaffordable. You can't commute to Manhattan anymore without taxes driving over a bridge. They put congestion pricing on. We're already taxed galore to commute if you're a commuter to go into Manhattan. They put taxes on the bridge both ways. They put taxes driving into lower Manhattan at an hour at a certain time frame. Property taxes are not proportionate to the rest of the city. We're paying water bills, gas bills. They don't want to approve pipelines. I just saw today that the state is not going to honor President Trump's tax plan and still tax New Yorkers on overtime. I mean, I don't understand. It's common sense to put money back in your constituents' pockets, and they do not do that. And, Staten Islanders, the elected officials, thank God that we have representing us there, they fight for the people. They are the quality of life issues. They are involved. They are in the community with us, and they are going to hopefully fight against the policies that Zohran Mamdani is going to try to implement. I think coming out of this meeting today, I don't think he's going to be so successful in what he probably wants. But
yeah,
we have to try to fight back.
Yeah, and time will tell with that. And if things start to hit the fan, right, over the next year, he has January 1st, he'll be sworn in at the mayor's office there in Manhattan. And then maybe it takes a little bit of time, but if it starts to really, really go down and it's really hitting the fan there, is the discussion about Staten Island seceding from the 5 boroughs, is that just something kind of like you and me were just talking, kicking it, or is it something that really people are saying we might do this and become Staten Island a city in New York State?
It's definitely something people are talking about. I think the reality of it is I think everybody has to band together if that is what the people truly want to fight for. It is something, we wouldn't, it's not unrealistic. We, as mentioned the other night, we are the size of cities like Miami, Cleveland, Ohio. We could certainly, and we'd be the second largest city in New York State if that were to happen. It just shouldn't have to be that way. Staten Island, New York City, it's our home. And we should be able to convince this mayor, who is supposed to represent all of the city, not just the people that voted for him. We need him to come to terms that he represents all of us and not just his socialist base that voted him in.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, again, I can't stop reiterating the point that there's 8 million people that live in those 5 boroughs, and only about 1.2 million voted for Mamdani. And then on top of that, you think about all of the brainwashing and indoctrination and just the rinse and repeat, which sways the public opinion, and then they go and press the button for Mamdani. Is that not how he won that thing?
And it's why I'm leading this club. I think there was so many votes that weren't casted. And I think that we need to educate, train, get people out to be a part of the, people died for the right to vote. And there are a lot of citizens in New York that did not cast that vote. And this is what happened. And again, there was almost 1 million people that did not vote for him. So he does not have a clear mandate. And so he needs to realize that. I think he is already realizing that. For example, calling the president already within 2 weeks and asking for a meeting and then going down there. So I want to say there's a glimmer of hope. So we'll see what happens with the president today. I have all the faith in President Trump. He knows exactly what he's doing. And if stuff does start to hit the fan, I think the president's going to inflict pain. And I don't want to see that, because there are good people here that don't deserve that pain. And that's why it's important for the mayor-elect to understand that and represent all of New Yorkers.
The president of the Staten Island Young Republican Club, Robert Burkhead. Thank you again, Robert, for joining us live.
Thank you, Matthew.
Thank you. Meantime, earlier today, before we get to some more of our sponsors, on the House floor, the Missouri Representative Mark Alford had this to say about socialism in America.
Speaker, thank you, Mr. Chair. My blood pressure's up right now. I cannot believe just what I heard on the House floor. The ranking member of this distinguished committee denouncing Trump, but will not denounce socialism on the House floor of the U.S. House of Representatives. History is clear. Socialism kills people. It leads to deaths of tens of millions, crushes religious liberty, and destroys free markets. Our founders built this nation on a revolutionary idea that individual liberty and not government control is a source of human achievement. They understood that when the government owns the economy, they soon seek to own the people. I hope people who are watching right now on C-SPAN or on the news get what's going on in this body today. This side is against socialism. That side is for socialism. I am disgusted with what's going on in this body. And I hope the American people see through the charade,
Gentleman's time's
the
expired.
gaslighting, and the lies that are being told. And with that, I yield back.
Mic drop. That was today on the House floor there in Washington, D.C. on Capitol Hill. It's unfortunately happening. It's those kind of things where people tell it like it is, right, which is a good thing. But a lot of times you might not want to say really what's on your mind. And this guy, this representative out of Missouri, is just telling it like it is. And it's unfortunate to see that the lines are being drawn in such a way, but That's kind of what's happening when we have people like Mamdani in New York and we have Katie Wilson as the mayor in Seattle who has the same political ideology. And of course, there are positive things to talk about in our country right now. We still want to see, though, I know a number of you have spoken up about it, whether it's on social media or just various people we've interviewed here at the network. We still want to see deep state indictments when there's evidence and there was receipts of wrongdoing. It's simple, breaking the law, especially in the sense of the 2020 election and subverting the will of the American people. Those aren't my words. Those are the director of national intelligence, Tulsi Gabbard's words. So we're going to see how that goes. We also know that the DOJ has up until December 19th to release all of the Epstein files. So we're seeing, again, that truth, justice, and the American way. We all have had our journeys to get to this point. But again, it's all about God, family, country, and freedom. And that's what, at the end of the day, that's what it's about. I know you guys know that, but you're not going to hear it on the mainstream media. That's just the way it is, unfortunately. Let's go to a couple of our sponsors before we go to some more interviews. Now, you see the Black Friday sale, and you might be asking, well, where's the meeting between the president and Zohran? As soon as we know if it turns from closed press to open press, we'll take you right there. In the meantime, mypillow.com/RSBN is the website. You get quite the discount as well using that RSBN promo code. And then you see the early Black Friday special, a number of great sales there. Good time to get it for Christmas. I know my family and I were putting up the tree, I think this weekend. I don't know. Is that too early? You can answer if you'd like on the comments wherever you're watching right now. But let's also go to RSBN in the sense of if you'd like to donate to the network. So as we have all these different live interviews and live guests and live footage from Washington, D.C., of course, it costs money to do all that. And we're not bought and paid for by some woke corporation. Nothing against corporations, but woke ones. Come on now, right? You go woke, you go broke. So if you can help us out, it'd be always good to do that. Text RSBN to 801-801 or go to the website, rsbnetwork.com/donate. As we are at the bottom of the hour, 3:31 Friday, November 21st. Joining us now is the CEO of VetCom, conservative author and veteran, Kate Monroe. Kate, thanks for joining us once again.
Happy to be here.
Let's talk about, let's pull back from New York for a second. I still want to get your opinion on it, but I know that as a military veteran, what's your reaction to those few Democrats that were trying to instruct our military to disobey, quote unquote, those illegal orders?
The audacity is amazing to me. In the presser, they were talking about, oh, are we really going to say it's seditious? Are we really going to charge them? Yes. If you read, Sun Tzu, The Art of War, sometimes you have to do something. Sometimes people have to find out that what they are doing is not going to be tolerated. It's just been a lot of messing around for the last decade, and no one has ever gotten in trouble for it. I mean, look at the amount of insane things that have happened over the last 10 years. I don't see anybody going to jail. I don't see we're not hanging people. We're not even indicting them. We're not even taking them to court, or they're not even getting in trouble. It needs to stop. I think it's disgusting as a veteran. It's gross.
The thing that's interesting is that there are a number of people like Peter Navarro or Steve Bannon or John Strand or the J6ers or whoever, the weaponization against we the people for speaking out. There's a guy by the name of Enoch Burke. He's a teacher in Ireland. He is not saying the preferred pronouns to one of the students there. The student wanted him to call him a they. And he said he's not going to and just called him or he, right? Just a person, a guy, a male. Well, if you look online, I think it's Garda, I believe is the name of the police in Ireland. 3 people showed up, officers showed up at his door asking him if he can explain himself about why he wouldn't call. Let's stop there. This is the you-know-what that I'm talking about, Kate. We don't want that here. We don't want the London stuff going on here. And so it does fire up people when communist types and socialist types and Marxist types want to come over here and trample all over our flag and trample all over our freedoms. And then tell our military, don't follow the orders. Your thoughts, Kate?
Well, when I was active duty Marine, I can't even have imagined somebody telling us that. We would have thought that was insane because we know, in chain of command who we report to. And I think that these seated members forget their own chain of command. I think sometimes they think that they are the top tier leader of everything, when in reality, they're pretty low in the hierarchy. You going behind the president or going out in front of him to say, don't do what he is instructing you to do is not just an overreach. It needs to be stopped. It needs to be nipped in the bud now, because the kind of stuff that was going on in the last two administrations with the military and their leaders, they should have prosecuted those military leaders for some of the stuff that they did going behind, President Trump in his first term. It's not a good look. It's not good if we allow it.
Exactly. And that's the thing that I think all of us are seeing out there. And that's why, sometimes the most common sense, simple statement is exactly what needs to be said. And I posted something very simple. And I know, to be honest, it's a Superman thing to say, truth, justice, in the American way, but it's the truth, isn't it, to want those things as Americans?
Yeah, I mean, you and I have talked before that I think that many people, if they're being honest, sitting at a kitchen table together, want the same things. I don't know who these people are that want these very fringe ideas. I haven't met a person on the left or the right that I could talk to that would say they think it's a good idea to start instructing the military not to obey their orders. That's just absolutely wild to me. And I'm the kind of person, if you've ever watched my social media, maybe I do say some naughty words occasionally and get a little bit fired up, but I'm not going to go quietly into the night. And I would tell the rest of America, you need to stand up, because we're going without a fight. That is exactly what we're doing. And it's time that we all prayed more, stood up more, and said more.
And voted more, in the sense of...
Voted more, God forbid.
And voted more does not mean more than one vote. Voted more simply means those that don't vote, let's vote. There's a percentage out there that just... Oh, yeah, but if it hits hard enough, in the sense of the SHI, hits the fan hard enough, people will be like, okay, I don't like this. I thought this was in another country, but this is our country now. It's on our turf. I love freedom. I know you do too. And most of you guys watching right now on RSBN, that's just what it's about. We're not reading from a prompter, teleprompter. We're just talking here, and I think that's what people want, is outsider types that are saying, no, I'm not part of this system that's coming up against we the people.
Well, I think people should just talk more. I remember being a kid in the 80s, parents, that were ideologically opposed, whether it was with religion or politics, they could sit down and crack a beer or have a barbecue. They might roast each other a little bit, but we're still going to be friends next week. The kids are still going to play. We're still going to vacation together. And now people can't even be friends with you on social media. They'll block you. They'll come against you. Like, I've had some of my own friends say crazy things to me. Like, you're just a fascist. You're racist. I'm like, I employ 240 people. We are like the United Nations. Please do not try to tell me that I am a racist, fascist person. I don't even think people really understand what these words mean anymore, because we live in a time such as this that you can just say whatever you want and go totally unchecked and be lied to and then turn around and tell that lie.
It's so true. And would you like to share what you shared last time about who you're married to? It's not somebody that believes in what you believe in, but you guys work it out. You know what I mean? Just work it out. And
yeah, my husband's a liberal.
Kate, we have to go to President Trump right now. Let's go to President Trump. Thanks.
Well, thank you very much. We've just had a great meeting, a really good, very productive meeting. We have one thing in common. We want this city of ours that we love to do very well. And I wanted to congratulate the mayor. He really ran an incredible race against, a lot of smart people, starting with the early primaries against some very tough people, very smart people. And he beat them easily. And I congratulated him. And we talked about some things in very strong common, like housing and getting housing built, and food and prices, and the price of Oil is coming way down. Anything I do is going to be good for New York. If I can get prices down, it's good for New York. And we've got them down, way down from last year. We have, as you know, I've been saying to a lot of people, Walmart said that Thanksgiving this year is exactly 25% less than last year. So that's good for New York, good for everybody. But I just want to congratulate. I think you're going to have hopefully a really great mayor. The better he does, the happier I am, I will say. There's no difference in party. There's no difference in anything. And we're going to be helping him to make everybody's dream come true, having a strong and very safe New York. And congratulations, Mr. Mayor.
Thank you, Mr. President.
Thank you.
I appreciate it.
Please.
I appreciated the meeting with the president, and as he said, it was a productive meeting focused on a place of shared admiration and love, which is New York City, and the need to deliver affordability to New Yorkers, the 8.5 million people who call our city their home, who are struggling to afford life in the most expensive city in the United States of America. We spoke about rent, we spoke about groceries, we spoke about utilities, we spoke about the different ways in which people are being pushed out, and I appreciated the time with the president, I appreciated the conversation. I look forward to working together to deliver that affordability for New Yorkers.
Thank you very much. Any questions, please?
President Trump, Stephen Nelson from the New York Post. I've got a question for you and then also one for Mayor-elect.
Sure.
For you, you referred to Mr. Mamdani as a communist. Can you describe why you feel that way? And also, will you do anything to stop him from arresting Prime Minister Netanyahu if he visits New York?
Well, we didn't discuss your second part of the question. And on your first part, I mean, he's got views that are a little out there, but who knows? I mean, we're going to see what works, or he's going to change also. We all change. I changed a lot. From when I first came to office. It's now quite a while ago. It's quite a while. My first term was great. We had the greatest economy in the history of our country. We're doing even better now. We're doing much better now than we did even the first term. And I can tell you some of my views have changed. And we had discussions on some things. I'm not going to discuss what they were, but that I feel very confident that he can do a very good job. I think he's going to be. I think he is going to surprise some conservative people, actually, and some very liberal people. He won't surprise them because they already like him.
And Mr. Mamdani, it sounds like you had a productive discussion, but just days ago you referred to President Trump as a despot who betrayed the country. You said you would be his worst nightmare and accused him of having a fascist agenda. Are you planning to retract any of these remarks in order to improve the relationship?
I think both President Trump and I, we are very clear about our positions and our views, and what I really appreciate about the president is that the meeting that we had focused not on places of disagreement, which there are many, and also focused on the shared purpose that we have in serving New Yorkers. And frankly, that is something that could transform the lives of the 8.5 million people who are currently struggling under a cost of living crisis, with 1 in 4 living in poverty. And the meeting came back again and again to what it could look like to lift those New Yorkers out of struggle and start to deliver them a city that they could do more than just struggle to afford it, but actually start to live in it.
And I've been called much worse than a despot, so it's not that insulting. Maybe I think he'll change his mind after we get to working together. Yes, please.
Mr. President, TV Lebanon. I would like to ask you a question about the Middle East regarding, you did said that Hezbollah in Lebanon is not in a good position. And Lebanon now is the final unresolved after Gaza and Syria. Given your assessment, like what do you say for the Lebanese today? It's the Independence Day in Lebanon. And what is your next move to push toward disarmament? The disarmament of Hezbollah.
Well, we are pushing for total disarmament of Hamas and, frankly, everybody else. And we actually have peace in the Middle East. As you know, the King of Saudi Arabia just left yesterday. We had some great meetings, and he's made a contribution toward the United States of more than $1 trillion. We have now over $20 trillion coming in. No country has ever had anything like that, not even close. If you go to 2 trillion or 1 trillion, it's a lot. We have 20 or 21 trillion dollars. I think that Hezbollah has been a problem in Lebanon, big problem. We're working with Lebanon. We're working with everybody in the Middle East. That's another thing I think we have in common. We want to see peace in the Middle East. And we actually have now, for the first time, peace in the Middle East after 3,000 years. And now we're going to refine it. And I think you're going to see some very positive things happen.
There is a potential to invite the Lebanese president to meet you to the White House.
I would do that, absolutely. And if the mayor would like to be here for that meeting, because I know he feels very strongly. I think you feel very, very strongly about peace in the Middle East. I think
we desperately want it, and that's something that I shared with the president, that when I spoke to New Yorkers who had voted for the president last November on Hillside Avenue and Fordham Road, I asked them why. I heard again and again two major reasons. One was that they wanted an end to forever wars. They wanted an end to the taxpayer dollars we had funding violations of human rights, and they wanted to address the cost of living crisis. And I appreciated the chance to discuss both of those things.
You said a lot of my voters actually voted for him, and
One in 10.
And I'm okay with that.
I have this hat as well.
I'll do that. I'll sign it. Give it to me. I'll sign it in a minute. That's pretty good.
Mr. President, Mr. President, you've threatened to send federal troops to New York City. You both have differences when it comes to ICE agents in New York City. Mr. Mamdani, you've called ICE a rogue government entity. I wonder how you reconcile your differences on both of those issues.
Well, I think we're going to work them out, and I think that if we have known murderers and known drug dealers and some very bad people, we want to get them out. And the mayor wants to have peace. We discussed this at great length, actually, maybe more than anything else. He wants to have a safe New York. Ultimately, a safe New York is going to be a great New York. If it's not safe, no matter how well we do with pricing and with anything else, we can talk about anything you want. If you don't have safe streets, it's not going to be a success. So we're going to work together. We're going to make sure that if there are horrible people there, we want to get them out. I think he wants to get them out maybe more than I do. So we'll work together. We discussed it at great length. Yes, please.
Yeah, two questions, if I may. One for you, Mr. President, on the BBC in a second. But first of all, for the mayor-elect. You're both from different parts of the political spectrum. You're both populists, though, and I just wonder to what extent the president's campaign style, his techniques, his social media use inspired any part of your campaign.
Well, I actually told the president that so much of the focus of our campaign has been on the cost of living crisis. And when we asked those New Yorkers who had voted for the president, when we saw an increase in his numbers in New York City, that came back to the same issue: cost of living, cost of living, cost of living. And they spoke about the cost of groceries, the cost of rent, the cost of Con Ed, the cost of childcare. And too often politicians are looking to lecture to New Yorkers what they should care about as opposed to listen. And when we spoke to those voters who voted for President Trump, we heard them speak about cost of living. We focused on that same cost of living, and that's where I am really looking forward to delivering for New Yorkers in partnership with the president on the affordability agenda.
And if I may, you
told me we have to work a little bit. We talked about Con Edison. We have to work a little bit on getting the prices because we've gotten fuel prices way down, but it hasn't shown up in Con Edison, and we're going to have to talk to them. If we're sending them fuel at a much lower price than it was a year ago, which is true. We have to get Con Edison to start lowering their rates.
Absolutely.
And if I may, last week you told me you were pushing ahead with your plans to sue the BBC for up to $5 billion. You're going to speak to Prime Minister Starmer as well. Is there any progress or any updates on those issues?
Well, we get along very well with the Prime Minister. We made a deal with UK. I like him. He's a fine person. And, I think they have some big energy problems. They've got windmills all over the place. They're going to have to start using other methods because their energy is out of control. Talking about in the UK, it's out of control. And he's got that problem. He's got a big immigration problem, as you know, and he's got a big energy problem. And we talk about it. He's a good man. Prime Minister's a good man.
You have a chance to speak this week.
I haven't spoken this week.
Mr. President, have you spoken to President Zelensky, or do you intend to meet with him, President Zelensky, about your plan? Are you going to meet with him?
I've spoken with their people. We have a plan. It's horrible what's happening. It's a war that should have never happened. It would have never happened if I was president, and it's a shame. And I thought they should have acted quicker. But it's a cold winter, and a lot of the you talk about utilities, but a lot of the big energy-producing plants have been under attack, to put it mildly, to put it nicely. We have a way of getting peace, or we think we have a way of getting peace. He's going to have to approve it. Just so sad, so many people. Last month they lost 25,000 soldiers. This is something, we haven't seen anything like this since the Second World War. And they're averaging 6,000 or 7,000 a week between the two of them, dead soldiers. And it goes on, and I think they're getting reasonably close. But I don't want to predict. I would have said that would have been one of my early ones. I did 8 peace deals of countries, including in India, Pakistan, You could even go, in fact, they're coming here in a week or two, go to the Congo and Rwanda. That was 10 million people dead, and we worked something out on that. But so many. And the one I thought would have been, for me, because I have a very good relationship with President Putin, I thought that would have been maybe quicker. But it does take two to tango. And now you just see all the death. And, you know, it doesn't affect us other than the fact that we don't want to see all those people that really, it's on the other side of the ocean. It's a war that should have never happened. It did happen. I blame the person also sitting right behind this desk. This is a war that should have never happened, and it wouldn't have happened if I were president. But we're trying to save a lot of lives. They're losing 25, think of that, 25,000 lives over the last short period of time. That's Ukrainian and Russian. And it's a shame.
I want to ask the mayor-elect about a House resolution just passed overwhelmingly to condemn socialism, including with 86 Democrats, all of House Dem leadership, and the minority leader, Hakeem Jeffries, despite his endorsement of you. What's your reaction to that?
I have to be honest with you, I focused very little on resolutions. Frankly, I've been focusing...
Condemn socialism.
I understand. I think the focus is on the work at hand. I can tell you I am someone who is a democratic socialist. I've been very open about that. And I know there might be differences about ideology, but the place of agreement is the work that needs to be done to make New York City affordable. That's what I look forward to.
And I want to clarify your answer to Stephen Nelson. He asked about your comment calling the president a fascist, and your answer was, both President Trump and I have been clear about our positions and our views. Are you affirming that you think President Trump is a fascist?
I've spoken about...
That's okay. You can just say yes. Okay. It's easier. It's easier than explaining it. I don't mind.
Mr. President, I wanted to ask you also about this Ukraine plan. President Zelensky said today that his country would risk either giving up a partner or giving up its dignity. There's been criticism that this deal proposal...
He doesn't like it?
It's unclear. He was sort of tenuous about it.
He'll have to like it, and if he doesn't like it, then, you know, they should just keep fighting, I guess.
The suggestion that he made, though, was that if he doesn't accept it, that the U.S. would pull back its support for Ukraine. Is that accurate?
At some point he's going to have to accept something. You know, he hasn't accepted. You remember right in the Oval Office not so long ago, I said, you don't have the cards. Don't forget, I inherited this war. This war never would have happened. I inherited this war. And I thought he should have made a deal a year ago, 2 years ago. The ultimate deal would have been if it never started. That would have been the good deal. That could have been done, too, if you had the right president. But you didn't have the right president.
Mr. President, the cost of living is something that you and Mr. Mamdani seem to agree on. Democrats have run New York City for a long time, Mr. Mamdani. Do you see Democrat policy specifically as being a problem? And I'd like that be a question that both of you could answer in New York City.
Look, I think that there are many things in our city where we have to own the responsibility of it, things that existed long before the president was the president. And those are also part of the message of our campaign, was to take on a broken politics of the past. And I ran against a number of candidates who represented different versions of that past. And what we found time and again is that working people were left behind in the politics of our city. And what we're looking to do is put those people right back at the heart of our politics so that we don't have a situation where we're in the wealthiest city in the history of the world, and yet 1 in 5 can't even afford $2.90 for a Metro card.
Mr. President, you know, we had some interesting conversation, and some of his ideas really are the same ideas that I have. But a big thing on cost, you know, the new word is affordability. Another word is just groceries. You know, it's sort of an old-fashioned word, but it's very accurate. And they're coming down high. They were, you know, we had, both of us, we had the highest inflation in the history of our country the last 4 years under the Biden administration. And we've got inflation down now to a normal number. It's going to go even a little bit lower than that. Katie, do you have something?
Mr. President, thank you so much. Mr. Mamdani often talks about New York City being covered by international law, that they will follow international law. Doesn't often talk about the U.S. Constitution. What is your response to that?
Well, I don't know what you're referring to in terms of it can be covered by international law, local law. It's covered by a lot of laws. But it's covered by U.S. law. Are you referring to anything in particular?
He just says that they're a city that endorses and enforces international law. Is that at odds with the U.S. law at all?
Would you want to Do you want to respond?
Yeah, I think what I've shared with the president is our desire to not only follow the laws of our own city, laws that protect New Yorkers, but also a desire for consistency in our politics across the board. And that's something that we've talked about and something that I know many New Yorkers want.
We work with ICE then? Mr. President? We work with ICE then?
We discussed ICE and New York City, and I spoke about how the laws that we have in New York City allow for New York City government to speak to the federal administration for about 170 serious crimes. The concerns that many New Yorkers have are around the enforcement of immigration laws on New Yorkers across the 5 boroughs, and most recently we're talking about a mother and her 2 children, how this has very little to do with what that is.
Mr. Mamdani,
What we did is we discussed crime. More than ICE per se, we discuss crime. And he doesn't want to see crime, and I don't want to see crime. And I have very little doubt that we're not going to get along on that issue. He wants to, and he said some things that were very interesting as to housing construction, and he wants to see houses go up. He wants to see a lot of houses created, a lot of apartments built, etc. And you know, we actually people would be shocked, but I want to see the same thing.
Mr. Mamdani, anti-Israel protesters.
Yeah,
Mr. President, I wanted to know one of the policies as well that Mayor-elect Mamdani talked a number of times about on the campaign was shifting the tax burden for property taxes from what he called minority communities to white-based communities and putting more taxes on white people. I also noticed that in your acceptance speech you didn't mention anything about America or Christians or white people in general, and so I didn't know if that was one of the policies that you guys had spoken about.
We focused on affordability. We focused on the cost of living crisis. What I will say is that I am very much interested in property tax reform because what we see right now in New York City is a system that is so inequitable that it can't even stand up in court. And the president and I spoke about the importance of not only building more housing, but also making sure that regulation of housing is something that is manageable to actually get through and not the cause of yet another weight that we see.
But to be clear, you're continuing this idea of race-based property taxes.
No, to be very clear.
That's what you said.
No, the use of the term was a description of neighborhoods, not a description of intent.
So you intend to tax the whiter neighborhoods more?
No, we intend to create a fair property tax system because we want a New York City that is not only fair and equitable, but also one that every New Yorker can afford.
Mr. Mamdani, anti-Israel protesters just targeted a synagogue in New York. Are you concerned about Jewish New Yorkers feeling welcome and safe in the city? And President Trump, you've threatened to cut off federal funding to New York City. What policies would prompt you to do that? Would that be city-run grocery stores? Would it be something else?
Well, I think if we didn't get along, whether it's cut off or just make it a little bit difficult or not give as much, we want to see, I use the term, we don't want good money going after bad. And we don't want that to happen. I don't think that's going to happen. I did say that, subject to what policies are being said. We had a meeting today that actually surprised me. He wants to see no crime. He wants to see housing being built. He wants to see rents coming down, all things that I agree with. Now, we may disagree how we get there, the rent coming down. I think one of the things I really gleaned very much today, he'd like to see him come down, ideally, by building a lot of additional housing. Yeah. That's the ultimate way. He agrees with that, and so do I. But if I read the newspapers and the stories, I don't hear that. But I heard him say it today, and I think that's a very positive step. No, I don't expect. I expect to be helping him, not hurting him. A big help, because I want New York City to be great. Look, I love New York City. It's where I come from. I spent a lot of years there. Now I'm right here. We took a big setback with the mayor that we had, named de Blasio. I thought it was a tremendous setback for the city. I think this mayor can do some things that are going to be really great.
Mr. President, thank you, Mr. President. You're a billionaire. You have a different address nowadays than you used to, but you used to call New York City home. Would you feel comfortable living in New York City under a Mamdani administration?
Yeah, I would. I really would. Especially after the meeting. Absolutely.
What makes you comfortable?
We agree on a lot more than I would have thought. I think I want him to do a great job, and we'll help him do a great job. He may have different views, but in many ways, we were discussing when Bernie Sanders was out of the race, I picked up a lot of his votes, and people had no idea, because he was strong on not getting ripped off in trade and lots of the things that I've practiced and been very successful on. tariffs, a lot of things. Bernie Sanders and I agreed on much more than people thought. And when he was put out of the race, I think quite unfairly, if you want to know the truth, many of the Bernie Sanders voters voted for me. And I felt very comfortable, frankly, in seeing that and saying that. And, you know, it just turned out to be a statistical truth. But no, I feel very comfortable. I would feel very, very comfortable being in New York, and I think much more so after the meeting. Yes, please.
Thank you, Mr. President. I have a question for you, but a very quick one for the mayor. Why did you fly here? Aren't trains greener?
I will use every form of transit, and I want to make sure that they're all affordable in New York City, and that's why making buses fast and free is a centerpiece of our campaign.
There is a bus that goes.
Well, I know, but if he flew, that's a lot quicker, too. No.
Your time is
he's working very hard. For him to be, that's a very long drive. I'll stick up for you. You know, the plane takes you 30 minutes and driving takes you a
And
long
Mr.
time.
President, I was wondering if you could clear up some confusion around a Washington Post report. There was this explosive report that the Coast Guard is no longer going to characterize swastikas and nooses as hate symbols. DHS called that a lie and fake news. Can you clear up?
I don't know anything about it. When was this written?
I think yesterday.
Well, look, the Coast Guard's an incredible group of people. I know them very well. We just ordered a lot of new Coast Guard cutters, beautiful, the most magnificent ship. They look like yachts with lots of guns on them. So I don't know. I haven't seen any report like that, but certainly we want them to remain a great force, and they are.
Mr. President, peacemaker, and you did the peace in all the 9 months around the world. I would like to ask Mr. Mamdani, you've accused the U.S. government of committing genocide in Gaza while President Trump was working on peace. Why that?
I've spoken about the Israeli government committing genocide, and I've spoken about our government funding it. And I shared with the president in our meeting about the concern that many New Yorkers have of wanting their tax dollars to go towards the benefit of New Yorkers and their ability to afford basic dignity. And what we see right now is we're in the 9th consecutive year of more than 100,000 school children being homeless in our city. And there's a desperate need not only for the following of human rights, but also the following through on the promises we've made New Yorkers. And I appreciated the meeting we had and the work that we can do.
Do you agree that President Trump did do a peace and he worked hard to make the peace? Because he worked hard to do the peace in the Middle East and everywhere. Do you agree with that?
I appreciate all efforts towards peace, and I shared with President Trump that when I spoke to Trump voters on Hillside Avenue, including one of whom was a pharmacist that spoke about how President Trump's father actually went to that pharmacy not too far from Jamaica Estates, that people were tired of seeing our tax dollars fund endless wars. And I also believe that we have to follow through on the international human rights, and I know that still today those are being violated, and that continues to be work that has to be done no matter where we're speaking of.
Mr. President,
question for Mr.
Thank you, Mr. President. Do you view the mayor-elect as the true leader of the Democrat Party, and do you think Leader Schumer's and Leader Jeffries, have to follow his lead?
Well, look, I hope they have great leaders. This is a man that right now I think is focused in New York City. I really think he has a chance to do a great job. We're going to help him, but I really think he has a chance to do a great job. But I'll let you answer that. You consider yourself the leader of the Democrats? I think it's more appropriate for him.
I consider myself the next mayor of New York City, and I keep my horizons firmly on New York City, and I appreciate the meeting with the president, which focused again on the 5 boroughs and whether New Yorkers could afford to live there.
By the way, being the mayor of New York City is a big deal.
Absolutely.
I always said, one of the things I would love to be someday is the mayor of New York City. Being the mayor of New York, and especially now, because I think you're at really a turning point, one way or the other. It could go great, or it can go in a different direction. And I think you really have a chance to make it great.
Mr. President, you say you love New York City. Mr. Mamdani, does New York City love President Trump?
New York City loves a future that is affordable. And I can tell you that there were more New Yorkers who voted for President Trump in the most recent presidential election because of that focus on cost of living. And I'm looking forward to working together to deliver on that affordability agenda.
I got a lot of votes. One more. Go ahead. 1 or 2 more. Go ahead.
One more.
The press has eaten this thing up. I've had a lot of meetings with the heads of major countries. Nobody cared. This meeting that you people have gone crazy. Outside you have hundreds of people waiting. This is just a small little group. For some reason, the press has found this to be a very interesting meeting. The biggest people in the world, they come over from countries nobody cares. But They did care about this meeting, and it was a great meeting. Go ahead.
Yeah, Mr. President, I was going to ask exactly that. Why do you think there's so much more, so much excitement around this than even some foreign leaders?
Because I think he's different. All right, I think he's different, and that can be in a very positive way. But I think he's different than, your typical guy runs, wins, becomes mayor maybe, and nothing exciting. Because he has a chance to really do something great for New York. New York is at a very critical point. And he does need the help of the federal government to really succeed, and we're going to be helping him. But he's different than, your average candidate. He came out of nowhere. I said he has a great campaign manager standing over there. He came out of nowhere. What'd you start off at 1 or 2? And then I watched. I said, who is this guy? He was at 1, then he was at 3, then he was at 5, then he was at 9. Then he went up to 17. I said, let's get a little bit interesting, right? And then all of a sudden he wins a primary that nobody expected he was going to win. It's a great tribute. I mean, it's an amazing thing that he did.
I'll just add one thing to what the president said. Is one thing I also appreciated is in our meeting to appreciate a portrait of FDR and the incredible work that was done with the New Deal, and also in thinking about what it can look like when the federal government and New York City government work together to deliver on affordability. It can be transformative.
We have a great portrait of FDR that I found in the vaults that was missing for years. I found it, and I put it up. He's a Democrat, to the best of my knowledge. He's a Democrat. And when the mayor saw that portrait, he said, "Sir, do you mind if I have a picture taken by that portrait?" It's an amazing portrait. I hope the picture comes out good. But it's an amazing portrait in the cabinet room. So he's a big fan of the New Deal, I guess, and of FDR. Yes.
Thank you, Mr. President. You said that you both spoke about crime.
Yeah.
There are many police officers set to come off the rolls at the end of this year in New York City. Are you going to allow those police to be replaced with police officers, actual cops? And are you going to require that happens? Would there be some consequence if the
Well, I hope
staff...
it happens, but again, that's going to be ultimately the mayor's decision.
What's your answer?
Is that I look forward to delivering public safety with the NYPD, and I've said over the course of our campaign that we have the number of police officers today. They are the ones that's budgeted about 35,000 headcount. And I think the key thing is that we have to make it easier for police to focus on police work, not ask them to respond to 200,000 mental health calls a year.
So is that a reduction from what you're at right now? Are you committing to maintaining the same level of cops?
I've committed over the course of the campaign to maintain the 35,000. That's the headcount that we had through the campaign.
And not replace them with caseworkers, social workers?
No, I've said that's the headcount that we want. What we need to do is make sure they can focus on serious crime.
And he just retained a great police commissioner, I believe, right?
Yes, we did. Commissioner Fish.
If the newspapers are correct.
That one they're correct about.
He retained, I think, somebody that is she's a good friend of some of the people in my family, of Ivanka, and they say she's really good, really competent, and he just retained her, so that's a good sign.
Mr. President, are there still topics that you see the two of you disagreeing on in the future, and do you think you'll have more meetings like this?
There will be topics that we disagree on. I think we'll probably come to a conclusion, and ultimately he'll convince me, or I'll convince him. It's for the good of New York. Ultimately, it's for the good of New York. I don't care about affiliations or parties or anything else. I want to see if this city could be unbelievable, if he could be a spectacular success, I'd be very happy.
Do you think you guys will meet more in the future, too?
Sure.
Do you think you'll meet again in the future, throughout the administration?
I think we will. I hope we do. I enjoyed the meeting. We had a great meeting. Please.
Mr. President, Republican Elise Stefanik has campaigned multiple times by calling Zohran Mamdani a jihadist. Do you think you're standing next to a jihadist right now in the Oval Office?
No, I don't, but she's out there campaigning, and, you say things sometimes in a campaign.
Isn't that sort of divisive?
She's a very capable person.
Isn't
But
that a kind of
you really have to ask her about that. But I don't particularly. I think I met with I met with a man who's a very rational person. I met with a man who really wants to see New York be great again. And I can say again, because New York was great. When I came down to Washington initially, the city was so hot. It was doing great. We were having some telltale signs of problems. We had a mayor that was not doing a great job, but still, it was moving along. And it went bad. It really went, pretty bad. And I think it's been at lower points, but it went pretty bad. I think he can bring it back. Now the question is, will he bring it back all the way? Will he bring it back greater than ever before, which is, I guarantee, that's his wish. I think he wants to make it greater than ever before. And if he can, we'll be out there cheering. I'll be cheering for him. Okay? Thank you very much, everybody.
Is there a reason you chose not to answer the question about the synagogue protest in Jewish safety?
I look forward to rooting out anti-Semitism across the 5 boroughs and protecting Jewish New Yorkers and every New Yorker who calls the city home.
Thank you for asking everything, guys. Thank you. Guys.
Thank you very much.
Well, there you go. So much to say after that meeting there at the White House. The New York Mayor-elect Zohran Mamdani and the president speaking with the press after meeting at the White House. Now, before we get to some of our sponsors, our next live guest escaped communist China nearly 40 years ago to find freedom in America. So we'll get to G. Van Fleet's reaction to today's meeting in just a minute. Before we do, let's go to CovePure.com. Of course, drink pure, live pure, Cove Pure. You know, I was talking with the crew the other day about water, and some of them said they still drink tap water. And I looked at them like, I can't believe it. You have to have some kind of filter, at least in my opinion. And this is a great one right here, covepure.com/RSBN. Go to that QR code right there. $250 off right now for the holiday sale. So it's covepure.com/RSBN. Let's also go to Venice AI. This is a beautiful display as well. Once you check out venice.ai/RSBN, this is something that will help you along the way because, you know, things like ChatGPT and others can now reference all your past conversations. So if you feel comfortable knowing an AI platform has access to all those thoughts and, you know, sensitive questions, business ideas, etc., well, you can keep using that. But also Venice AI has a solution for you. You can use AI without handing over your sensitive information. You can get all the information you need at venice.ai/RSBN. Before we get to our live interview, let's go to crypto.com. And let's be clear, you know, cryptocurrency is no longer emerging, it's here. And this latest move cements that reality in a big way. Trump Media just inked a massive $6.4 billion deal with Yorkville Acquisition Corp and crypto.com. It's the crypto platform trusted by millions of users worldwide. So if you want in on the action, all you have to do is head to crypto.com today to make crypto great again. Again, if you'd like to buy CRO, visit crypto.com today. All right, so it's 4/11, Friday, November 21st. You just saw quite the meeting there in the Oval Office. And joining us now is the anti-communist activist, G. Van Fleet. Thank you so much for joining us. I understand, so you escaped communism, and now what do you see here with this meeting? What's your reaction, ma'am?
Well, there's a lot of nice talks, but I'm not convinced. I'm not convinced that they all want the best for New York City because the approach is so polar opposite. And one is going to harm New York City and the other is, of course, is going to help. And Mamdani is a communist. He just tried to be very kind of smooth and mild. He's not. He's a communist. What he wanted for New York City is going to bring disasters. He, you know, campaigned against Trump. Now he wants to meet Trump. Why? You know, you want to, as a communist, he wants to redistribute wealth, and that's what he's after. He wants. He already turned down by his comrade, governor. Now he wants money from federal government to do what? To redistribute. This is so sad for me. I escaped communism 26 years almost 40 years ago, and so because I want freedom, I believe this land is a land of free. But today, this land become a land of free stuff, and I really can't. Seriously, I can't really complain about Mamdani, but I complain about the voters. The voters vote him in. He's a communist, but if voters don't believe in free stuff and don't believe in communism, Mamdani won't ever become mayor. So it's the problem with the voters. And I go a little bit further. And I think it's because of our educational system. And it has been in control by Marxists for so long that people just believe in big government. They absolutely believe that government is solution of every problem they have. And then they get communism. And I hope that New Yorkers will really help the whole nation to understand that communism is going to deliver dystopia, not utopia, but dystopia. They choose him, they are just going to, they're just going to suffer the consequence.
So first they get you with the institutions, the education, the brainwashing, all of that, right? And then these people go out there and vote. And then on top of that, then what happens is they think that it's, just some free stuff. Before you know it, government control, government censorship. What was it like for you when you were in the 80s there in China and you said, I'm out of here? And then you also wrote this book, Mao's America, A Survivor's Warning. Tell us about that.
Well, the book, the main point is to make the parallels between those two cultural revolutions. I lived through Mao's Cultural Revolution, and that's 50 years ago. And now it's going on here. And what is it? Basically, it is a Marxist revolution to destroy the foundation, moral and a cultural foundation of a civilization. And so this is what happened here. And the people, tear down statues, and they absolutely want to get rid of anything traditional. And they went even step further. And so in Mao's America, they destroyed the tradition. Now, the communists here, the Democratic, I call them communist Democrats, they want to rewrite biology. So they went even further. They were trying to tell us that there's no difference between man and women, and man can be man can be women, women can be men. So they're even worse than the Chinese communists.
Wow.
And that's why that for decades, we have generations of Marxists. They're the voters, and they mostly concentrate in big cities. And this is such a tragedy, absolutely a tragedy for America.
Let's talk about London, England quickly, and then also over there in Ireland, because people, if they say a certain thing against a certain belief system, you might get a knock at your door. What do you think about that? And then that stuff happening in America, if it really gets to that point, which you never know.
No, this is exactly what happened in China. It's mind control. It's not even speech control. They control your mind. Like me, growing up, I never knew there was another version of so-called truth. I only was told one truth, that's party's truth. And I believed it because I have nothing to compare with. So you can't have free speech when your mind is controlled. And I see that happen in America and in the West. And the people who dare to speak up, they're going to get punished. And we still have the protection of our First Amendment. But we see that happening in other countries, in UK, my goodness. And the people just get police knock on the door because they tweeted something mean. And this is going to happen in America if we don't stop it.
And then you look at the Democrats, you're calling them, communists. I mean, really, without even saying out there that I'm a socialist or I'm a communist, it's their actions speaking louder than words. Would you, I want to put you on the spot here. First of all, this is G. Van Fleet. Thank you again for joining us. The deep state, right? There's these indictments here and there, but these are people that tried to subvert the will of the people in 2020, according to Tulsi Gabbard. You have all of these things happening, trying to just eat away at our freedoms in America. Do you agree that we should be holding people accountable much more than we are right now?
Absolutely, absolutely. We become a country of lawlessness, and people can, people rich and powerful and can do whatever without consequences. Not only that, they have the media behind them, and there's so many people on the other side just absolutely refuse to even try to understand what's really going on. They just pick a side and then they support whatever their side is doing. Their side, sorry, is really communists.
Can you tell us about when you were in China, what's the aspect there when it comes to people's faith in a God, and what do communists believe about God from your perspective?
Well, communism is a religion. It's more than an economic system. So what Chinese communists did when as soon as they got into power is destroy all religions, Buddhism, Confucianism, Christianity especially. They destroy everything, and then they replace them with the party line. So party become the communism become religion, and our God was Mao, and our Bible was that little red book.
Wow.
And so they did that. They destroyed, even though Mao died, decades ago. But the foundation of the society has been destroyed. It's really, really a big vacuum now in China. People don't know what's right, what's wrong, and that's very, very tragic.
It's something that are you surprised that we're flirting with socialism and communism in this way in America right now? Has this come to you as a surprise because you left China for freedom in America?
Yes, I have to say this, that when I came here, I thought I left communism behind me. And I thought, my life would be ever happy after. I don't have to worry about anything because this is America. I think too many Americans still think that way. Nothing can really go wrong here. This is America. But soon after, I start to notice dangerous signs here, there, until, of course, 2020. And I saw what happened in America. And it just remind me exactly of the chaotic cultural revolution that I experienced as a schoolgirl. So am I surprised? Yes. But I'm not, at the same time, I'm not surprised because communists never gave up their dream of destroy capitalism. And in order to do that, they have to take down America. So they have been trying for more than 100 years. Now I know. We can go back at least in the 30s. So they have been doing that little by little by little. And now here we are. Our institutions are pretty much all falling. And even in our military. When you see DER, transgenderism, identity politics in our military, you know that every other aspect of the society has been infiltrated by communism.
Now that you've been in the States for this many years, I'll ask you a personal question. Do you have a faith? Do you have a religion? Would you like to share with us what you believe now that you got free from the communist religion?
Well, yes. My religion is freedom. And I know where that freedom is from. It's not just from nowhere. And it is from Christianity. And it is only when you experience tyranny, you can understand how special America is. And our rights for growing up, I absolutely truly never questioned. I thought my rights are from the government. When the government say I can do this, then I can, otherwise I can't. And here in America, we believe that our rights are from our Creator. And that is so revolutionary to me. And so I think that we are falling this low because we have departed from the principles of Christianity. And in order to save America, we have to go back to the source of our freedom. And that's how I believe.
Amen. Jesus Christ of Nazareth, the truth will set you free, right? Final question to you. September 21st, 2025, the late, great Charlie Kirk, that memorial in Glendale, Arizona. Did you get to see any of that? Did you see that spiritual spark that happened there? And what are your thoughts about that moving forward?
I think that in crisis like that, I think a lot of people are weakened. And weakened that this is a really, it just gave me goosebumps. This is a spiritual battle. This is absolutely a spiritual battle. And the only way that we can get out of this is going back to the source of our freedom, as I said. And so I'm just amazed that his death actually brought so many people back to Christianity.
Amen. Anti-communist activist Xi Van Fleet, thank you so much for joining us on Right Side Broadcasting Network. Hope to talk to you again soon.
Thank you.
Wow. 423, Friday, November 21st. When we hear from people that experienced the true communism like she did, great to have that insight. That's why they call it an interview, right? So we don't want to flirt with socialism and communism in this country. We already see what's happening in England and Ireland, down in Brazil, a lot of places. We are the leader of freedom, and that's why we have to continue to vote hard, pray hard, work hard, speak up. Let's keep this thing going, because you don't want to deal with what other countries are dealing with when it comes to our Constitution and our free values, all the things that we have here in this nation. So before I end with a final thought, we're going to go over a couple sponsors. And again, it's a common sense thought. If you're expecting rocket science coming up, you're not going to get it. But I do want to share something with you before we close. It's something I started the broadcast with, but many more people, I believe, are watching. Maybe some of you, turned it off since the president was done with the Oval Office. But let's go to a couple sponsors, and we'll close up with that thought here in just a second. So All Family Pharmacy is the great sponsor of the day. Of course, we have a number of them here at Right Side Broadcasting Network. So, here at RSBN, we always try to point you toward companies that actually support your freedom and give you real choices. And that's exactly why we trust All Family Pharmacy. They're not your traditional pharmacy pushing flu shots. All Family Pharmacy is different. They give you options. They encourage you to take charge of your health, stay prepared, and have the right medications on hand before sickness hits. And of course, heading into the holidays, that's important. The travel, the cold weather, the family gatherings. This is when everyone can unfortunately get sick. So why wait until someone is miserable and you're scrambling for appointments or a pharmacy line? All Family Pharmacy has everything your family might need, from antivirals, antibiotics, ivermectin, hydroxychloroquine, mebendazole, even those emergency kits and supplements. So all doctor reviewed and delivered fast to your door. Now, while you're out doing your holiday shopping, there's nothing wrong with adding a few essential medications your family might need. So stock up, stay prepared, and keep your family healthy this season. Visit allfamilypharmacy.com/RSBN. Use that code RSBN10 for 10% off. Our final sponsor of the evening before we wrap the broadcast on this Friday, November 21st. Every major financial disaster begins with a few simple facts that a number of people unfortunately ignore. In 2007, it was overextended credit, reckless lending, and misplaced faith that quote-unquote everything will hold. Then it didn't. The banks failed, savings vanished, retirements were cut in half. The lesson was painful and unforgettable. Today, those same indicators are returning. The auto loan defaults are rising. Commercial real estate is strained. Private credit has grown far beyond its limits. These aren't just theories, they're patterns. And when patterns repeat, when people refuse to act. So for more than 25 years, Monetary Gold has guided Americans through every economic storm with an A+ Better Business Bureau rating and one constant truth: real value endures when paper confidence fades. So you can study the evidence, act on reason. You see the number there. Go ahead and give them a call or go to rsbnforthegold.com to get this info kit whenever you'd like, actually. So gold and silver and precious metals, always good to have, especially in financial tough times. All right, so it's approaching the bottom of the hour. This is something I talked about at the top of the broadcast. I'm just going to go over it real quick. It's only going to take about 25 seconds, and then we're going to close up shop for the evening. I was thinking yesterday about what really defines, quote unquote, we the people. We know it's a government of, by, and for the people. It's something that we heard from Abraham Lincoln in the sense of reading his speech from that Gettysburg Address. And I came up with these 10 words when you think about the definition of we the people, at least right now of what I was thinking. God, family, country, freedom, truth, justice, and the American way. 10 words. It's what it's all about. God, family, country, freedom, truth, justice, and the American way. It's 427, Friday, November 21st. Thanks so much for watching. My name is Matthew Alvarez. Thanks to Robert McNeely for the first hour of coverage. Hope you have a great weekend, and we'll see you soon.
Welcome to Right Side Broadcasting Network, your trusted conservative news outlet. At RSBN, we deliver the truth when the mainstream media falls short. Since 2015, we've proudly broadcasted every single one of President Trump's iconic MAGA rallies, bringing you the excitement and energy live before anyone else. By watching RSBN, you get an unfiltered front row view of the action on the ground. We interview the crowds to give a voice to millions of Americans just like you. We show you President Trump's speeches in their entirety, free from interruptions and censorship. We cover the stories that matter to you with the integrity and passion you deserve. Thank you for choosing RSBN as your home for America First News. Together, we stand strong, united, and informed. So join us and be part of the right side of history.
Hey y'all, it's Silk from the Diamond and Silk Chit Chat live show. Look, don't forget to check me out right here on RSBN Network. Be sure to watch the show on Right Side Broadcasting Network, and I want you to support Right Side Broadcasting Network. Yes, it's imperative that you do so, okay? I look to see y'all soon. Bye-bye.
allfamilypharmacy.com/RSBN. You can scan that QR code now, RSBN10. That is the code, easy to remember, for 10% off. This is ivermectin, hydrochloroquine, antibiotics that will save you and yours from bacterial and viral infections, NAD+, and much, much more. 200 essential medications and emergency medical kits, the meds you trust delivered to your door.